Chapter 699. Mr. Chin, I think you should let Marco carry the camera. In front of the camera, Bai Ling was a little shy. Chen Guang didn't think much of it. He turned around and let the annoying third-wheel Marco carry the camera. He took out his phone and looked at the bullet screen. The pace in the live broadcast room had taken off. Brother All-Rounder is getting better and better. Now he has a beautiful assistant for outdoor live broadcasts. Something's up. Of course, who is Brother All-Rounder? How can he be a host if he doesn't do it? You don't say. This girl is really pretty. I'm a loyal supporter of Goddess Jean. This girl can't even speak Chinese fluently. She's definitely not good enough for our Brother All-Rounder. As for these bullet screen comments that wished for the world to be in chaos, Chen Guang said that he was a man of great character and did not hold it against them. But soon, a talented guy jumped out from the bullet screen. Chen Guang couldn't control the murderous intent in his hands. He used his phone's bullet screen assistant to send this guy to the detention room to calm down. This was what he said. It's necessary to do it, but how is it enough? Brother All-Rounder's principle is to do it once. Below, a group of people followed, 666666, and, Brother, you're talented. For this kind of talented young man, Chen Guang thought it was necessary to send him to a small dark room to think about life. Mr. Chen, can I interview you? Why did you suddenly decide to come to Detroit to participate in this world arm wrestling competition? I also grew up in Detroit. This is the 4th time I've encountered this competition in this city. As far as I know, the people who can participate in this competition are all very strong. Mr. Chen, although you're strong enough compared to ordinary people, compared to these contestants, Bai Ling was very cautious in her interview. As she spoke, she also looked at the big men coming and going with some suspicion. Although she was overseas, she knew a thing or two about Chen Guang. After all, Chen Guang had previously live-streamed on YouTube many times, and as a staff member of YouTube, she had directly participated in the work related to the Dota Throne Challenge. She also knew that this was a super streamer who did not play by the rules, but was extremely able to attract traffic. But this time, your crossover is a little too big. From the champion of the World Darts Championship to an esports player, to an actor star, and then from an actor star to a piano master. In the blink of an eye, you actually came to participate in the competition between Hercules. His methods were quite wild, and his tempo was very fierce. No matter how one looked at it, it felt like he was delivering food. Chen Guang was really tired of being bragged to these people for the past 2 days. Where did his confidence come from? Thank you for your concern, Miss Bai, but this is unnecessary. I will not lose to anyone. No matter where it is or what we are competing against, I will not lose. You just need to know this. Bai Ling was stunned. Although she grew up in the United States, she was imperceptibly influenced by the style of Europeans and Americans from a young age. Celebrities here were not very humble and low-key as a virtue, and there were many arrogant people who were not in the minority, but it was really rare to see someone as insolent as Chen Guang. Little girl, I just heard what you asked lighter. Let me answer for him. Don't use his size to measure him, or you will be defeated like me. Bowman, who was waiting at the side, suddenly came over and barged into the camera. Bai Ling knew Bowman. Although this giant man had never won a championship belt in the boxing ring, he was still a well-known player who had participated in the WBC, WBO, and other boxing championship competitions for the championship belts. Mr. Bowman, what are you doing? Bai Ling was confused. Chen Guang also did not know whether to laugh or cry at Bowman's change in attitude. When he was being arrogant, his tail was up to the sky, but after knowing how powerful he was, he immediately turned into a brainless fan. This guy was too honest. There were viewers in the live broadcast room who knew what he was. Isn't that Bowman the Beast? Oh my God. Why does Brother All-Rounder seem to be very familiar with him? Bowman the Beast? A very famous super heavyweight boxer in North America, ranked in the top 20 in the world, known for his great strength. At this time, Pierce also came over. Lighter, come and register your registration information. Over here. Pierce was followed by a middle-aged man in staff uniform who seemed to be his friend. Bai Ling and cameraman Marco followed behind Qin Guang and quickly went into reporter mode, introducing Pierce's life to the audience. This time, the live broadcast room was full of invincible talent. The old men in the audience thought that Brother All-Rounder was now getting better and better. He was already talking and laughing with great scholars, and there were no ordinary people around. He just casually participated in an arm wrestling competition, and he was actually followed by a big shot in the North American boxing world. But in other words, this meant that if he lost face, he would really lose face internationally. Mr. Chen, what level of competition are you going to participate in? How about the 75 kilograms group? This is the smallest competition. The staff of the arm wrestling competition asked with a smile. Although Qin Guang was brought to sign up for the competition for Pierce, his head was a bit shameful. The staff was already giving him face by not laughing out loud. Bai Ling, who had been behind Qin Guang, quickly explained in her broken Chinese, "Now that Qin Guang is about to officially sign up, from my personal point of view, his best choice is to participate in the 75 kilograms group. After all, he is not a professional wrist athlete. Even compared to those of the same level as him, he is too thin. Most of the players' arm circumference is far thicker than ordinary people, and they have gone through systematic professional training. So, which level of competition will Qin Guang choose? Let us wipe our eyes. What? More than 105 kilograms, thank you." As Qin Guang said this, he calmly filled in the information on the registration form. Bai Ling rolled her eyes. "Let me finish what I want to say, bastard." Bai Ling stood behind Qin Guang and looked at him eagerly. Then she weakly read in English again. Yes, that's right, everyone did not see wrongly. He directly chose the highest level, the 105 kilograms and above competition. I really don't know what to say. At this moment, the audience in the live broadcast room finally realized that this was not a drill. This guy was not a drill. He really planned to compete with those monsters. Did I hear it wrong? Kid, you want to participate in the super heavyweight competition of more than 225 kilograms? At this moment, a man next to him, who was as tall as Bowman, suddenly turned his head and looked at Qin Guang with interest. He looked him up and down with all kinds of ridicule in his eyes, exactly the same as Bowman when he first met Qin Guang. "Demon, get out of the way. Do you want to eat my fist?" Without waiting for Qin Guang to speak, Bowman, who was next to him, had already moved forward in a rather irritated manner and forcefully pushed the burly man. The burly man named Demon was stunned for a moment before he decided to simply tease Bowman. "Yo, isn't this the boxing champion, Mr. Bowman? I brought my 4 sons to watch your previous match live on TV. You fought beautifully, not bad." Everyone knew that he was talking about the match where Bowman was KO'd in 1 round. "Shut up. If you're not convinced, you can try boxing too." Bowman was anxious. Demon snorted. "I'm not interested in boxing, but you can try. If you meet me this year, I guarantee that I'll break your hand in 2 seconds. Although Demon was not a boxer, his status in the world of wrist wrestling was much higher than Bowman's. Last year, he even placed 3rd in the super heavyweight category of the entire wrestling competition. For a moment, Bowman did not know how to refute him. Demon raised his eyebrows proudly and looked at Qin Guang again. He pointed at him and said, "Brat, I can tell that you seem to be a celebrity. However, arm wrestling is not acting. Don't try to use us as supporting characters in your superhero movie. I hate people like you. You better pray that you don't meet me at the beginning. Otherwise, I'll send you to the hospital. Be careful of your hand." With that, Demon turned around and left. "This bastard!" Bowman glared at Demon's back indignantly. He was extremely angry, but in terms of arm strength, he was indeed not as good as Demon. The audience in Qin Guang's live broadcast was also stirred up by this extremely arrogant foreigner. This grandson's words are really unpleasant. Although I think what he said makes sense, isn't this too disrespectful? I feel sorry for Brother All-Rounder for 30 seconds. Brother All-Rounder, don't be a coward. Roll up your sleeves. Beat him to death. Although I also want to blow like the person above, I feel like I can't blow it. Rin Chong fan number 1 fan. Rin Chong's fan club sends a congratulatory message. wishing pretentious light and early hospitalization. Rin Chong fan number 1 fan has been muted. Admin 666,666. Not to mention these fans at this time, there was another person who was even more miserable. Little brother Yang. She was currently being scolded by Big Beard Deng. Little Yang, you already knew that he was going to the United States, right? Big Beard Deng glared at Yang Shi with a face full of resentment. He was also extremely disappointed with this incompetent young man. I asked you to follow him closely these few days and take the opportunity to explain the script to him. Is this how you follow me? Now that he is our male lead and an investor, this matter is already set in stone. Whether or not he can act is one thing. Now that our itinerary has been set, what if he gets injured abroad? Who can we reason with? Yang Shi sat dejectedly at the side, not daring to raise his head. He complained in his heart. I want to stop him, but how can I control him? Director Deng, you said it yourself. He is now an investor, and I'm just a small assistant. Even if you lend me 10 guts, I wouldn't dare to really make him unhappy, right? And as I said before, with President Chen's acting skills, there is really no need to worry. Forget it, let's not talk about it anymore. Who asked me to be his underling? You don't dare to stop him either, do you? Yang Shi silently touched the corner of his mouth, which was almost crooked from being slapped by Big Beard. He felt bitter in his heart. Seeing Yang Shi's aggrieved look, Big Beard Deng's heart softened again. He patted him on the shoulder. Sigh, little Yang, don't blame me for being too hot-tempered. I'm just anxious. The pressure is too great, too great. I know you are also in a difficult position, but your task is really important. I say you are really too much. Although you only report the good news and not the bad, you told me that Qin Guang's acting skills are at the level of a best actor. Isn't that nonsense? And this lousy competition of his, sigh. Big Beard did not speak again. He turned his head and stared at the live broadcast on the computer screen. He muttered to himself, I know this foreigner called Damon. I worked with him briefly when I was filming in the United States 2 years ago. He is indeed very strong. I hope that Qin Guang doesn't really meet him, or else he will really be in danger. About 15 minutes later, as the registration ended, the results of the preliminary round groups were out. Big Beard's mouth was wide open, and he really could not say a word for a long time. I jinxed it. There was also an uproar in the live broadcast room. That's right, Qin Guang was really assigned to last year's third place, Damon, in the preliminary round. Chapter 700. There's something fishy about this grouping. That was what many people were thinking. Mr. Chin, why don't you discuss it with Mr. Pierce? Ask them what's going on with this grouping. Thousands of people signed up, and you bumped into Daimon as soon as you arrived. It's too weird. Even Bai Ling was tugging at Qin Guang's shoulder as she spoke worriedly. The audience in the bullet screen, as well as Little Tsong and the others who were watching the live broadcast, had already slammed the table. They all felt that this matter was not that simple. Big Beard Deng picked up his phone and wanted to call Qin Guang. He wanted him to give up on the competition. But Big Beard could not get through. Qin Guang had changed his account after arriving overseas, so Big Beard quickly asked Yang Shi to call him. Yang Shi was reluctant. Director Deng, it's useless. Look at Chief Chen's expression on the screen. He doesn't look like he's afraid. He's obviously proud. Yang Shi wasn't wrong. When Qin Guang received the grouping, he didn't treat it as a big deal. He was still worrying that he wasn't shocking enough and that he wasn't able to intimidate those who were flaming him online and on the bullet screen. Little Lin, White Lady, and the others were still worried. Bumping into Daimon at the beginning seemed scary, but it was just right. Once he made a move, he had to convince everyone. I think something's wrong. I'll go and ask. This is too much of a coincidence. Although Pierce was hurt by Qin Guang's unwillingness to take up boxing, he really treated Qin Guang as a friend. He felt that there was something fishy about this matter, so he decided to go and talk to him. Qin Guang held him back. Mr. Pierce, there's no need. No problem. Have you forgotten my 1088 kilograms yesterday? That's not just explosive power, right? After a brief stun, Pierce soon recovered from his shock. He felt that Qin Guang's words made sense. It's naturally impossible for Chen Guang to unleash a punch that's over a ton in terms of explosive power. Chen Guang's strength wasn't something that anyone could imagine. As someone who had witnessed miracles with his own eyes, even Pierce found it hard to believe. He really couldn't understand how someone of his size could hit such frightening numbers. "Kid, I'll be waiting for you." On the other side, Damon appeared again. He was still speaking in the same arrogant tone as before. He pointed at Chen Guang's nose and flexed his biceps, looking as if he was asking for a beating. Bowman was unhappy again, and Chen Guang and Pierce hurriedly pulled him back. It was tiring to have a bomb by his side. The competition format of the World Arm Wrestling Competition was relatively casual. It wasn't particularly formal, especially in the preliminary stage. There wasn't even a professional judging team, only volunteers were in charge of the arbitration. However, considering that the rules of the arm wrestling competition were relatively simple, ordinary volunteers could maintain basic fairness after some simple learning. Hello, everyone. After a short break and grouping, the grand event of the arm wrestling world, the preliminary stage of the World Arm Wrestling Competition, is about to officially begin. We will be broadcasting Chen Guang's journey in this competition. In short, let's wish him good results in advance. Bai Ling was still broadcasting dutifully, even though she herself felt that the so-called good results sounded like science fiction. As she explained to the camera, she couldn't help but look at the ambulance in the distance. She thought to herself, maybe I can probably make it in time? The guy who had said on Twitter yesterday that he would be broadcasting Chen Guang's entire competition felt wronged. He had been following this Huaxia guy closely with his cell phone, hoping to capture the scene of him bribing others. In the end, this guy actually brought his own livestream team and was standing on YouTube's homepage. There was no audience in his room. Where are the people who said they would support me yesterday? You liars, you're worried about my traffic. Unlike the other preliminaries, Chen Guang's team had a huge difference in size between the two participants. At the same time, Daimon was also a key player. Therefore, the organizers of the competition had sent 2 professional referees to protect Chen Guang from the beginning. Daimon, this Huaxia guy named Right Chen, has a very high status in Huaxia. You just need to win more or less. Don't really hurt him, or you will get into trouble. Do you understand? The person in charge of the organizer of the competition knew some things, and because of Pierce, he pulled Daimon to the side and instructed him before the competition started. Daimon looked at Chen Guang, who was not far away, and curled his lips in disdain. Sir, I understand what you mean, but look at him. His palm is like a baby in my hand. I'm really afraid that I will crush it if I use a little more strength. You can't blame me for that, right? The person in charge of the organizer was also having a headache. Can't you control your strength a little? All right, I'll try my best for your sake, sir. After waiting for a few more minutes, Chen Guang and Daimon finally stood in front of their respective tables. The tables used to host arm wrestling competitions were different from ordinary tables and chairs, especially the tables used for super heavyweight competitions. They had a pure cast iron frame, and the bottom was welded directly to the ground of an abandoned car factory. The surface was covered with a layer of rubber and sponge. On both sides of the table, there were metal pillars specially made for the players to hold onto. For Chen Guang, who was at a complete disadvantage in terms of weight, this was his trump card. Otherwise, if others used their weight to press him down, he would definitely be able to move his entire body. Kid, do you know what someone told me just now? Daimon stood on the other side of the table, stretching his arms with a provocative look on his face. Chen Guang ignored him. Just now, Mr. Green told me that you are a celebrity in Huaxia and have a very high status. He asked me to control my temper when I compete with you so that I won't hurt you. Chen Guang still ignored him. But I told him that it's very difficult because you are too weak. You should participate in the women's division for the 75-kilogram weight class and below. This is the world of tough guys, and it doesn't belong to you. Chen Guang finally ignored him. He first placed his arm on the table and then clenched his fist. You talk a lot of nonsense. If you are done, quickly shut up. Bowman and Pierce watched from the side. Bowman, who was very experienced, saw Chen Guang's expression and muttered softly, I have a feeling that Daimon is going to be in big trouble. Pierce nodded. If Wright can really unleash his strength from yesterday, Daimon will indeed be in big trouble. On the other side, Bai Ling and her cameraman, Marco, surrounded Qin Guang and Daimon's table. Ladies and gentlemen, the competition is about to begin. Bai Ling forcefully raised her voice, trying not to sound so weak. Other than Bai Ling, there were quite a number of people who had turned on the live broadcast at the same time. Each of them had their cell phones pointed in the direction of Qin Guang and Daimon. After all, the disparity between this pair of contestants was too great. Even though the competition was in full swing, they seemed rather unique. Other than that, the official live broadcast team of the competition also pointed their cameras at the two of them. The 4 big screens on the 4 sides of the factory showed the scene of the table at the same time. The people who hadn't noticed them at first were in an uproar. Hey, did that bro fill in the wrong information when he registered? It seems like that's the case. But he seems to be planning on persisting in the competition? Don't joke around. He is facing Daimon. His hand will be broken. God bless him. Stop fooling around. The Huaxia people are basically atheists. Then, shall we wish him good luck? That's right, good luck. On the big screen, Daimon finally stopped his chatter and similarly placed his hand on the table. As usual, the referee walked forward and tried to tie their hands together with a strap. Daimon shook his head. There's no need for that, right? I only need 1 second to settle him. I won't let go. Chen Guang didn't care and pursed his lips. I think so too. Indeed, you only need 1 second. Huaxia kid, you, are all Americans as talkative as you? Chen Guang raised his head and looked at him. Congratulations, you've succeeded in annoying me. This bro is really unlucky. Mr. Pierce, don't you feel that the air is turning cold? Bowman suddenly said in a genteel manner. Pierce didn't reply to him. On the other side, the referee had started the countdown for the match between Qin Guang and Daimon. 3, 2. Bai Ling spoke very quickly. The referee has started the countdown. The competition is about to begin. 1. Bang. This match was really fast, so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. It might not even be 1 second, but it could also be only 0.5 seconds. The moment the referee finished the countdown, the muscles in Qin Guang's left hand, which was holding onto the metal pillar to stabilize his body, and in his right hand, which was holding onto Daimon's, suddenly expanded and contracted. His feet subconsciously left the ground, and a terrifying force erupted from his arms. The pectoral muscles that he had just trained yesterday acted as the pivot of his arms, and they also erupted with terrifying force. The arrogant expression on Daimon's face was still stiff, but his entire body was already leaning to the right uncontrollably. His right hand was firmly pressed onto the table by Qin Guang, and he couldn't move at all. His mind was still in a daze. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? There was a short period of silence in the huge abandoned factory. Everyone stared blankly at the 4 large projection screens, and their mouths were wide open, unable to speak for a long time. It was just like how Pierce and the others felt when they saw Qin Guang punch 1,088 kilograms with their own eyes yesterday. They thought they were blind. What the hell? This Huaxia guy had used his arm, which was as thick as a baby's, to fiercely press down Daimon. How did he do that? This didn't conform to scientific principles at all. The thickness of these two people's arms was completely disproportionate. Bowman shrugged. See, I told you. Daimon is going to be unlucky. Bai Ling stood at the side in a daze. She hadn't even had the time to announce the start of the competition, and it had already ended? She was about to cry. Let me explain it properly. Why? In Qin Guang's livestream, something unprecedented happened. The bullet screen actually went silent for a few seconds. However, after a short period of silence, rockets, gifts, and all kinds of 6666666, invincible, and very expensive, were immediately followed by a frenzy of rockets and gifts. Congratulations to Brother Almighty for successfully F***ing the sky. And so on. YouTube's livestream was not much different. A group of people thought they were blind. Don't tell me Demon is going easy on us? This was the first thought that popped up in the minds of many YouTube viewers. However, They immediately overturned their guesses because Daimon on the screen had already started to scream. My hand! Oh my god! My hand! Qin Guang let go of his hand. Daimon grabbed his right hand and screamed in pain. Beads of cold sweat shot out from his forehead and temples, and the bones in his right forearm appeared to be bent in a strange way. Yes, that's right. Chen Guang had exerted his strength too quickly and fiercely. At that moment, Daimon had tried his best to turn the situation around, but it was useless. He was still forcefully pressed down by Chen Guang. Of course, he didn't throw the match. He even used a strength that exceeded the endurance of his arm. As a result, his right forearm was directly fractured. However, it was useless. He was still defeated on the spot. It wasn't rare for a player's arm to be broken in an arm wrestling competition. However, in the past, it was always a player at Daimon's level who broke other people's wrists. After all, his arm bones were much thicker and stronger than ordinary people's. However, this time, Chen Guang used his Kirin arm to teach this guy an extremely memorable lesson. I've reminded you, buddy. I'm not easy to deal with. Chen Guang crossed his arms and stood on the other side of the table. He looked at Daimon coldly. Do you need me to compensate you for your medical expenses? The person in charge of the competition, Green, walked forward with a horrified expression. Mr. Chen, there's no need for that. The insurance is included in your registration fee. Daimon's injury is covered by the insurance. Chen Guang looked at Green and nodded. Then he looked around. Is that so? Very good. Thank you. According to the groups of the preliminaries, another brawny man had already won another preliminary and was about to compete with the winner between Qin Guang and Daimon. He shook his head like a rattledrum. I want to withdraw from the competition. Chen Guang's first two preliminary rounds of the right-handed category had ended in such a dramatic manner. However, it didn't matter. This was just the first step of his road to acting cool. There were still 4 more preliminary rounds for today. The final winner would enter the top 128 finals the next day. In addition, he still had 6 rounds of matches for the left-handed category. My dear audience, I believe you've seen it. I'm already incoherent. I don't even know how to describe what I'm feeling right now. I feel like I'm about to orgasm. After a brief moment of absent-mindedness, Bai Ling said loudly with a flushed face, It's unbelievable. I don't understand how he did it at all. Come, let's take a look at Qin Guang's arm. What kind of arm does it have to possess such terrifying and explosive power? Oh my god. Come, Mr. Qin, cooperate with me. Bai Ling's eyes lit up. She moved closer to Qin Guang, pulled up his sleeves, and asked Marco to point the camera at Qin Guang's deltoid. The sexy and hot Bai Ling stroked his shoulder emotionally. I really wish I was a doctor. I really want to see what's so unusual about his muscle fibers. My dear audience, do you think the same as me? Your anchor is so powerful. I don't know what you think, but if it were me, I would definitely start sending gifts like crazy. Oh, by the way, I can give you my sweet kiss now. The difference between a live webcast and a TV program was that the female host could also be more sexy and active. This foreign woman doesn't know how to behave. Damn it. Jiang Yage waved her little fist at the screen. How dare she take advantage of my Qin Guang? Jean Shiyue comforted her. Yage, don't be angry. Don't you see that Qin Guang is blushing and avoiding her? In a small forest courtyard near Yanjing, Wenwen, who had just finished her closed-door meditation, also stared at the computer screen. She didn't care about Bai Ling's flirting with Qin Guang. Instead, her pair of beautiful eyes stared at Qin Guang's arm in the camera. Even through the screen, Wenwen could see the terrible explosive power from this arm. She knew very well that Qin Guang didn't have internal strength. She couldn't help but think in her heart, could it be that I also made a mistake? This guy's hand, this bone, is going to defy the natural order. Chapter 701. The last time Wenwen met Qin Guang, she was shocked by his terrifying bone structure. However, time was tight and she had already passed the painting scroll to Qin Guang, so there was no point in asking too much. At that time, Wenwen only thought that regardless of whether Qin Guang's bone structure was good or bad, it would take at least a year or two for him to reach the standard of the painting scroll from an ordinary person. She did not need to worry too much about it. However, how long had it been? Although this guy still did not have inner force, his physical strength was so strong that it was intimidating. Even if Wenwen had her own unique skills and inner force, she was sure that in terms of physical strength, she would definitely be left behind by Qin Guang. Just the moment he broke the arm of the strong man in front of him showed his overwhelming strength. The absolute strength he displayed in that instant was at least half a ton. Wenwen secretly clicked her tongue. It seemed that compared to her, this guy was the real genius. Was he just buried because he came from an ordinary family? I told you, there's no need to worry about him. My dear, you're too much. All right, let's not look at him anymore. Let's get down to business. We have such an unlucky chief who only takes money but does nothing. He left us, the two of us, to live a carefree life abroad. Why do we have to worry about his safety? I'm not that kind. At Qin Guang's house in Wujing, Wu Miaowan was pointing at the monitor and cursing. Qin returned to her chair and looked at Wu Miaowan. Little Miaowan, do you think that the wretched heavens are really that unfair? It's bad enough that we're in the same era as that demonic girl Wenwen, but why did we have to meet a beast like Daisy? Sometimes, I really wonder what it will be like when he gathers all the bones in his body and starts to cultivate the painting scroll. It's really scary to think about it. Wu Miaowan craned her neck and thought about it for a long time. Finally, she came to a conclusion. It's hard to say what the outcome will be, but based on my observation of him, if he's able to defeat the both of us, our asses will suffer. No matter how unhappy and tangled these two deputy bureau chief were in Wujing, Qin Guang was beaming with joy at this time. Sending Demon to the hospital right from the start made his path of advancement exceptionally smooth and magnanimous. Regardless of whether he was in the right-hand group or the left-hand group, people would be afraid of him the moment they saw him. No one would care about how unreasonable his head was and how sorry he was to the audience. In an arm wrestling competition, it was a competition of raw strength. There was no ambiguity. Unless it was an opponent of equal strength, there might be a need to pay attention to the state of play. But with Qin Guang's dominating strength that was enough to crush the competition from the beginning to the end, the others couldn't struggle at all. Even if they roared until their throats broke, it would be useless. Today was a day where the world's arm wrestling competition participants, the two major live streaming platforms, Bamboo and YouTube, and the ESPN channel's audience, had completely refreshed their worldview and outlook on life. Before the appearance of Qin Guang, human strength was often directly related to weight. After all, the more muscles one had, the stronger one was, and the stronger one's absolute strength would be. This was a positive correlation that was in line with scientific principles. Before today, this was basically the truth. Even if there were occasional discrepancies, it was not far from the truth. However, there had never been a person like Qin Guang who forcefully participated in a 105 kilogram and above competition with a weight of 75 kilograms. Among the contestants who fought against him, the lightest one was more than 110 kilograms, and there were even giant monsters that weighed 150 kilograms. But no matter who he encountered, the result was the same. Other than being knocked down with loud bangs, there was only an instant kill. It was simply unreasonable. Lying in the hospital, Demon, who was still persevering in watching the live stream, was also teary-eyed. Who would have thought that this small man's body was equipped with nuclear power? How did your bones and muscles grow? Are you a human or a machine? No, you should be an alien instead, right? The audience was gradually getting numb. Wife, come and see God. Mom, hurry up and see the Eastern God. If not for the fact that he doesn't have fangs, I would have thought that he was a vampire. I have already called the North American clergy. I think it is necessary for them to use the Holy Cross to examine this Huaxia man to see if there is a demon living in his body. This is too strange. The above were the bullet screen comments in the YouTube live stream. The domestic Bamboo platform was even crazier. Following the basic principle of being a loyal fan, Qin Guang's Bamboo live stream was like an annual carnival. What could be more satisfying than watching one's idol act cool and trample on others? Of course, their idol was obviously so skinny that he looked like he was malnourished. But in terms of absolute strength, he crushed them mercilessly, causing those foreigners to be so scared that their faces turned pale, but there was nothing they could do. Brother All-Rounder is simply too beastly. I was not his fan at all in the past. I don't play games, race cars, play the piano, know nothing about darts, and have no interest in sharpening pencils. However, I am a fitness enthusiast. I have been working out for 4 to 5 years, but I have never seen anyone who can train his absolute strength to the point where his body does not have any obvious muscle expansion. Everyone, no matter what you think, I will first send a rocket to celebrate. To the previous poster, Bamboo used Buddha jumps over the wall. Are you an idiot sent by the enemy station? Alright, then I will send 2 Buddha jumps over the wall. My slip of the tongue, everyone, please forgive me. Ren Chang's 3rd fan club's deputy leader. From now on, everyone can be a loyal fan. Ren Chang can go play. Deputy leader, it doesn't rhyme. Ren Chang's 3rd fan club's deputy leader. Rhyme my ass. My wife asked me why I was kneeling on the ground watching the live stream and didn't have time to rhyme. Invisible dog food is the deadliest. Burn the deputy leader to death. Throughout the night, the gifts in Qin Guang's live stream did not stop. Just like the rockets from soy milk, Bamboo's Buddha jumps over the wall was simply a pile of gifts. As a live stream that had never used fake gifts before, Chen Guang's live stream could be considered a clean stream in the entire live stream industry. After all, even when the boss, Little Tsong, personally sent gifts to Chen Guang, he did not secretly change the data in the background to renege on the payment. Instead, he stuffed money into Chen Guang's wallet with real money. He was quite kind. It was a pity that there was a time difference between the 2 countries. By the second half of the night in China, the number of viewers in the live stream had dropped to 2 million. However, this was already the king of the midnight time slot and the giant of the live stream industry. During this period, there was a cyber police comrade who found Little Tsong and raised an objection to the sexy foreign beauties who appeared in Qin Guang's live stream from time to time. He requested that the live stream be banned. Little Tsong did not do anything else. He reported the matter to the person in charge of a mysterious department. The cyber police comrade, who was called a supervisor but was actually bored, immediately went to participate in re-employment training. During the competition, someone in the field suggested that Chen Guang should be tested for performance-enhancing drugs. However, this young man was soon knocked down by Chen Guang with 1 finger. He decided to shut his mouth. He was the 4th contestant in the 195-pound weight class, and he was knocked down with 1 finger. In a sense, performance-enhancing drugs could make people perform exceptionally well, but it was absolutely impossible to turn a stick of hemp into an iron rod. The strength that this guy possessed was indeed overwhelming. A whole day passed. When evening came in Detroit, Chen Guang advanced into the top 128 of the left-hand and right-hand groups without any suspense with his 12 instant kills. He led a group of people back to Pierce's club in high spirits. This time, he was followed by Bai Ling and Marco. Bowman had become Qin Guang's die-hard fan. He followed behind Qin Guang in all kinds of ways to please him. In the end, he could not help but reveal his foxtail. Li, teach me. How on earth did you train to such terrifying strength? Qin Guang shrugged. Bowman, I am indeed willing to teach you, but you definitely can't do it. Bowman's chest drooped. Impossible. Bowman, I can tell that you are a winner in life. You definitely can't understand the determination of a man like me who has been single for 20 years. This move of mine in China is called Qilin Arm. Only a true god of misfortune can comprehend this god's skill in despair. Although you desire power, you have distracting thoughts in your heart. You should just give up on this heart. I see. Bowman was extremely disappointed. The phrase, god of misfortune, really made him feel despair. He couldn't do it. On the other side, Bai Ling came up again. Mr. Chen, as far as I know, you and Jean Shiriyue are boyfriend and girlfriend, right? I have heard of the Qilin Arm, but you don't understand. The Qilin arm is the pursuit and dream of every Chinese boy when they are young. You won't understand even if I tell you. Although you are Chinese, you grew up abroad. You don't understand the real Chinese young people. Hurry up and kick Marco back to China. We still have so many single men who are suffering. Bai Ling, you are so beautiful. Don't let foreigners take advantage of you. As Chen Guang teased, he chuckled to the camera, "Brothers, I've helped you guys fight for it. Everyone give me more gifts." After saying that, he ran away. Pierce called him over and said that he wanted to introduce him to a few people. Marco, who was carrying the camera, could not understand Chinese. He was puzzled and asked Bai Ling, "What did he say just now?" Bai Ling blushed. "Nothing, Marco. I want to go to China soon to see my ancestral home. I will go with you." Marco did not know that a crisis was coming. "No need. I will go back alone." Chen Guang casually said hello to the group of people that Pierce brought. Then, he did not waste any time. He used the excuse of reading a script to go back to the villa alone. In fact, his mind was immersed in the Holy Grail. The whole day was not in vain. The audience of the two major live broadcast platforms and ESPN, at least millions of people, had witnessed his great achievement at the competition. Although he had not won the championship yet, the faith value of the Qilin arm had already soared from the original 18,000 to 25,000. If there were no accidents, after tomorrow, the Qilin arm would smoothly be maxed out. If he went back and played the piano, the output of the piano world's faith value would immediately soar. This rhythm was simply perfect. Chapter 702. Chen Guang didn't say anything all night. In China, many people went to work early the next morning with dark circles under their eyes. Their lives were also hard. The next morning, Chen Guang met an old acquaintance when he arrived at the race venue. It was the son of Sonic Frant, who he hadn't dealt with for a long time. He was the American who gave him a big gift in the Xiangjiang car race. This guy and his father, Sonic Shack's car modification factory, was also in Detroit. As the first king of racing and the first person in history to win the championship of a car race, Shack was also a hero in Detroit. Like father, like son, Frant inherited his father's talent well. He also had a high status in Detroit and had a good relationship with many gangsters. Shack's car modification factory represented the highest level of car modification in North America and was sought after by famous people who loved cars. Originally, Frant was not in Detroit these days, but yesterday he saw Chen Guang's appearance on ESPN and remembered the video he had seen before. He knew that the Xiangjiang masked car god was the Chinese internet celebrity Chen Guang. Without saying anything, he put down what he was doing and rushed back to Detroit overnight just to see his idol. "Mr. Chen? Masked car god?" Frant was a little nervous when he saw Chen Guang again. So far, he still couldn't forget that night when Chen Guang was like a god. In the field of racing, he was so powerful that others didn't even have the qualification to look up to his back. When he was wearing the V, Special Agent Team mask, he was a man of few words, cold and merciless. When he faced challenges from others, he would silently suppress them with his overwhelming strength that could make others look up to him in awe. Although his true face was finally exposed on the internet and many people in the racing world saw it, he seemed to have no intention of officially entering the underground racing world. Instead, he was immersed in other things. He even almost forgot the fact that he was the car god of this generation. He seemed to have no interest in racing at all. This was a great blow to people like Frant or Tommy Diesel. God was so unfair and cruel. He let a peerless genius like Chen Guang appear in front of the racing world with an irresistible momentum, and then left without hesitation. He only left a record that could not be surpassed by future generations. He pushed the technical level of racing to unprecedented heights. Perhaps it would take at least decades for future generations to advance the technology to touch his back. He was so strong that people only wanted to worship him as a god. But he turned around and disappeared into the crowd. When he reappeared, he had become the champion of the World Darts Championship, a piano master, a handicraft artist, or an esports player. He no longer seemed to have any interest in racing. Just imagining it made the 9 car kings and son of Sonic, who had been defeated by him, feel sad from the bottom of their hearts. Now, seeing him again, even though he was not wearing a mask and was talking and laughing with others, France still felt nervous and frightened from the bottom of his heart, and when he took the initiative to speak to him, his voice trembled. Looking at the tall young man who suddenly came up to him, Chen Guang was stunned. "Hello, may I ask who you are?" He thought to himself, could it be a fan I mixed in when I was racing in Xiangjiang? Taking a closer look, the thread of faith value floating over the other person's forehead was indeed very thick. It was one of his people. Frant finally determined that he did not recognize the wrong person and was overjoyed. "It's me." Chen Guang secretly rolled his eyes. "Who the hell knows who you are?" Oh, you are that. Who's that?" "Frant, have you forgotten? We had a car race in Xiangjiang, and you won my Ford." This time, Chen Guang finally remembered who the other person was. "It's you. Long time no see, long time no see. Nice to meet you." He suddenly became much more enthusiastic. After all, the other person was the boy who gave him money and had made a lot of contributions to him. Frant was also very happy. "Mr. Chen, do you really remember me?" Chen Guang nodded. "Of course, I also know that you are very good at modifying cars. Your car is full of power, which left a deep impression on me. However, your driving level can't keep up with the power of your car and can't exert its true ability. Do you know each other?" At this time, Pierce came up. He knew Frant. "Of course, Mr. Pierce, I am a fan of Mr. Chen," Frant said without hesitation. On the other side, Chen Guang had to prepare for the game and did not continue to stay here to chat with the two. However, Bai Ling hurriedly came up to interview Frant. In front of the camera, Frant was not stingy with his words of praise, praising Chen Guang's driving skills as unparalleled on Earth and rare in the sky. When Bai Ling chased after him again, Frant and Pierce, the two fellow sufferers, together, were equally depressed. One was distressed that Chen Guang did not take his own driving skills seriously, and the other was distressed that Chen Guang was unwilling to go into the ring even if he was beaten to death. They both felt that this guy had a lot of money in his hands, but he was wasting it. After a whole day of crushing yesterday, even if he entered the top 128 today, no one dared to look down on Chen Guang. On the contrary, his opponents, even if they were in the top 16 last year, were all ashen. For example, Devin, the former dominator of wrist strength, as Chen Guang's opponent in the first round of the finals today, had even shouted the slogan, "Fight for dignity." Although Devin was no longer as dominant as he used to be in recent years as he grew older, he was still a strong contender for the top 8. Seeing him declare his position like this, everyone could not help but sigh. However, the arena did not believe in tears and dignity. Only strength could win the respect of the world. Unlike yesterday, this time, everyone's attention was on Chen Guang at the beginning, and some people had even secretly bet on whether anyone could last 2 seconds in his hands. As for the problem of body size, who cared? No matter where Chen Guang went, even if his match had not started, one of the 4 big screens in the arena was always focused on him, making his every move particularly eye-catching. "Bro, let's not film him when he goes to the toilet, okay?" "No, Mr. Chen, everyone wants to see what's so special about a strong person like you. Your posture when you go to the toilet must be unusual." The beautiful staff member sent by the competition organizer looked at Chen Guang eagerly. Her eyes were really bright. Chen Guang wanted to stab her to death with a pile driver, but in the end he endured it. He pointed to the door of the men's room and said, "Please go out first, I can't pee with you here." Our TV show is very broad. This is not against the rules. There are really many friends who asked me. F***ck off. In fact, at this time, the female staff member was not the only one who was very curious about Chen Guang. There were too many people. It was said that a special department in the United States had tried to communicate with Huaxia, hoping to keep Chen Guang in the United States. The two sides would work together to study the secrets in Chen Guang's body. What he showed was definitely beyond the current genetic level of human beings. This special department in the United States soon received a reply from the senior leader of Huaxia. It was said that the bald Mr. Jiang personally recorded it and specially emphasized that the senior leader must listen to it in person. F***ck your mother, in your dreams. If you dare to touch Qin Guang, we will start a war. Try it if you don't believe me. Mr. Jiang's reply was concise, and clear. He was so annoyed by this group of Americans that he laughed. You are a group of frogs at the bottom of a well. You have never seen powerful people. What is Qin Guang? He is just strong. If you see the powerful internal force experts in our country, won't you be so arrogant? Besides, no one can touch Qin Guang. Now, through Qin Guang, we have finally roped in the Wen family, which is extremely important among the internal force experts. How can you do such a thing? In fact, there were some different opinions about the overly strong physical strength that Qin Guang had shown so far, but they did not think that the problem was at the genetic level. They only believed that it must be the Wen family's leader who gave Qin Guang some kind of shady help, which made this kid become a phoenix. What did this Huaxia leader say? The director of the Special Department of the United States, who did not understand Chinese, looked at his subordinate in confusion. He seems to be very emotional. The subordinate who was responsible for the translation next to him was embarrassed. How could he translate it? Snow, what did he say? Well, I'll give you 3 seconds to translate it for me, or you can get out of here. First of all, he asked about your family. Well, Huaxia is indeed a country of etiquette. In fact, even I feel that my request is too much. After all, Qin Guang is a Huaxia citizen. Please express my gratitude to Mr. Jiang for his condolences. Oh, okay, but he refused our proposal. He thinks our idea is impractical. Snow was in a cold sweat. He chose his words carefully and translated carefully. After a brief pondering, the bureau chief nodded his head. I've underestimated the problem. We have too little information on Qin Guang. I heard that there is a very special group of people in Huaxia. These people have mastered very mysterious Eastern power and are very powerful. According to the small amount of information we have obtained in the past, Qin Guang also has some connections with those special people. If Qin Guang's power comes from those mysterious people, it is indeed not something we can control. Then what did Mr. Jiang say? He didn't say anything else. He just further emphasized that he doesn't want us to have any ideas about Qin Guang. Hey, Snow, you can leave now. It's good that you know about this. That's all. The director gave an order and fell into deep thought again. He turned his head and looked at Qin Guang, who was confronting Devon on the big screen, very melancholy. Chapter 703. Dear viewers, Qin Guang is now facing the world champion Devon from 5 years ago. He was once known as the man with the strongest right arm in the world. What kind of fire will erupt when the two collide? Sigh, the match is over. Bai Ling felt so tired. She had never been so tired since she became a host for YouTube. This match was really not easy to commentate. I wanted to exaggerate a little and brag about your opponent to create a sense of anticipation for your audience, but you win so quickly every time. How am I supposed to commentate? I can't go on anymore. Qin Guang shook hands with Devon, then turned to Bai Ling and said, Bai Ling, if I were you, I wouldn't cripple this god. Impossible. I don't believe you can win so easily all the way to the finals. Especially Dennis' left arm and Alexei's right arm, they are also very strong. I went back yesterday and did a lot of preparation work. I don't believe it, I really don't believe it. Do whatever you want as long as you're happy. Qin Guang gave this high-spirited YouTube staff 32 thumbs up for her professionalism. He only knew one thing, and that was that his back and waist injuries had only recovered 80% to 90% yesterday. Today was his full recovery. I can only apologize to Dennis and Alexei. You guys are indeed very strong, and you guys have shed a lot of sweat and tears for this tournament. But for the sake of this pair of Qilin arms, I've set off over 20 million brass fireworks in the world within the cup. The price I have paid is countless times more than yours. So, I have to win. And I will win super easily. Bang. Piddleman knelt. Bang. Bowen knelt. Bang. Babiv knelt. Bang. Nikola knelt. Bang. Alexei knelt as well. From the beginning to the end, he did not give Bai Ling a chance to commentate. He climbed to the top step by step in a straightforward manner. When he truly stood at the top of the world of wrist strength, Many people felt like they were in a dream. On one hand, his physique was inconceivable, but on the other hand, the process of his victory was so clean and efficient that it was indisputable. The strongest Huaxia man in history. No, he is the strongest man in history. I really want to know how he trains. If I had the same body type as him, I might not even be able to break his fingers. Didn't someone try it yesterday? He was pushed down by a single finger. I've really fallen in love with this Chinese man. Does anyone have his contact information? I'm going to vote for him as the man women want to sleep with the most this year. Similar comments came one after another in YouTube's live broadcast room, ESPN's forum, Must Die, Twitter, and INS comment section. This was the first time that Qin Guang had participated in an overseas competition. Although it wasn't an influential competition, it still brought him considerable influence on the international stage. His rise in popularity was even more ferocious than Dennis in the previous competitions. There were many factors that contributed to this result. First of all, he was the first Chinese person to display such dominating strength in this kind of competition. Secondly, he participated in the super heavyweight competition with an even slimmer body and crushed his way up. This was also an unprecedented situation. Furthermore, his personal achievements did not stop at arm wrestling. When his past achievements were dug out one by one, the many skills he had mastered were piled up together, bringing about a qualitative change in quantity. Just as Qin Guang had once pursued, no matter what you liked, the old man was good at everything, and he was the best at everything. There would always be one that could charm you. I not only have quality, but I also have quantity. After Qin Guang crushed Alexei in the right arm competition, he moved on to the left arm competition and defeated Dennis, the strongest wrist strength on earth. His journey in the world arm wrestling competition had officially come to an end. Along with the endless flow of gifts on the screen, Qin Guang walked to the podium step by step. The second and third places with him were all much taller and stronger than him, making him stand out from the crowd. Bai Ling looked very depressed. The situation that she dreamed of after a stalemate and a difficult victory did not appear until the end. This guy was simply the nemesis of the program effect. He did not play according to the routine. Every time, he would lift his two legs in the air and then exert force with both hands. The opponent would immediately be defeated without a chance to struggle. Although his movements were not elegant, they were extremely efficient. Bai Ling also understood that his weight disadvantage was too great. If he wanted to win the competition, he had to do this. It was destined that he could not go easy on his opponent. Otherwise, if his opponent took advantage of his weight advantage and directly knocked him to the ground, who could he blame if he failed miserably? I understand the logic, but I feel terrible. Come on, Bai Ling, don't be depressed. I have to go. I will have many similar events in the future. This won't be the last time I work with YouTube. If there's a chance in the future, you can continue to stream my matches. Sooner or later, I'll give you a match that you'll be satisfied with. Qin Guang took the 2 championship bonus checks from Mr. Green and turned his head to Bai Ling with a smile. $2 million was not a lot for him, but who would say no to money? Of course, he accepted it. In addition to the competition bonus, he had received more than 5 million renminbi in gifts on Bamboo Live broadcast platform in the past 2 days. On the other hand, YouTube had directly received 2 million renminbi as a live broadcast copyright fee, and after splitting the gifts, he had received about 400,000 renminbi in cash. In just these 2 days, he suddenly came up with the idea to participate in the international arm wrestling competition. Without making a sound, he easily earned close to 15 million in cash. Tian Guang's manager's participation in this matter was simply too low. Yu Hong and the rest simply transferred the money into Qin Guang's personal account without worrying about Tang Xiaokai's opinion. Therefore, the world was so unfair. When he was poor, even if he wanted to earn tens of millions a month, he had to rack his brains. But once a person reached that special level and status, money seemed to no longer be money, but became a dispensable number. The more famous he was, the easier it was to make money. Money came easily, and he could use money to earn more fame. This was a snowball process. Unless the snowball exploded or rolled in the wrong direction into the sea, he and his Tianguang brokerage would not collapse. For example, this time, in addition to money, he had attracted more than 400,000 fans in Bamboo Live broadcast room in the past 2 days. After all, he rarely did late-night slots, and rarely did outdoor fitness live broadcasts. This time, he appeared in the top world competition in the fitness field, and he won the championship with a crushing victory. In addition to the characteristics of late-night slots, he also had to thank Bai Ling and other foreign girls who appeared in the live broadcast from time to sell their bodies, which attracted a lot of new viewers for his personal live broadcast room. Up to now, his personal live broadcast room had a total of 3.7 million fans. Once again, his fans were all living people. Just like that, he relied on unconventional sword moves to unknowingly become the well-deserved #1 online anchor in the country. In addition, under the operation of Tianguang Brokerage's staff, his personal Weibo followed up on his competition situation at any time, and there were many updates related to the competition. Combined with the recent popularity of the women movie incident, it did not matter if others came to scold him, to criticize him, or even to advertise under his personal Weibo. They were all customers, and he clicked follow before leaving. The number of his personal Weibo fans increased by another 2 million, officially crossing the 20 million mark and reaching 21 million. Regardless of whether others were convinced or not, his value as a celebrity had climbed up a notch, which meant that it would be easier for him to make money in the future. Now that Chen Guang was gradually attracting more and more attention, there would naturally be people who hoped that he would be unlucky. For example, when Chen Guang invested in women, there were many people who hoped that he would fail and suffer a loss in the box office. There were many people waiting to see him make a fool of himself, but only Chen Guang and Yang Shi knew that it would not fail. There wasn't a problem with the script, and the director was Big Beard Deng. The main cast's acting skills were also excellent. If this film wanted to fail, the only risk was that it wouldn't be able to be screened. But for Chen Guang, who had reached the pinnacle of the universe, it was practically impossible. Women was not anti-human, so how could it not be released? Besides, there were also Jiang Yage and Jin Shirue among the main cast and investors. It was guaranteed to be profitable, and if it was not profitable, it would be his fault. But whether it was money or fame, these were not what he cared about the most. He only cared about the faith points. Chen Guang felt the faith points flying in from all over the world, and then he sank his mind into the cup. He found that the world of the Kirin arm had been directly maxed out as he had expected, reaching a daily production of 44,466 units. Only then did he truly feel a sense of fullness in his heart like never before. After a period of unremitting efforts, Chen Guang had now maxed out the production of the pencil sharpener, knife tower, darts, and world of the Kirin arm to 44,466 units. In addition to the Racing God training ground, which was close to 26,000, the piano world, which was close to 4,000, the pile driver world, and the 29,000 additional faith points from the Sea of Time. In addition to the 1,094 provided by his only fanatic, Xue Lin, his daily production of faith points had increased from just over 100,000 to 285,000. This meant that as long as he was willing, and as long as he was not afraid of courting death, he could go through a beggar's special training in 2.5 days. Holding the cup tightly, Chen Guang felt very comforted. His hard work did not disappoint him. Oh, right, I have to book a plane ticket quickly so that I can sit on the same plane as Sun Xiaoxuan tomorrow. Chen Guang took out his phone and called Fang Tianyu. As a former employee of the Tangjie Foundation and a fierce member of the marketing department, booking plane tickets was Fang Tianyu's specialty. After the call, Chen Guang opened WeChat and clicked on the class group chat. On one hand, he wanted to brag to Xiao Lin, Bai Nyangzi, and Xiong. On the other hand, it was time to reply to Sun Xiaoxuan. He would not look for her directly today. Tomorrow, when it was almost time, he would directly take a car to her school, meet her, and then go to the airport together. Chapter 704. Mr. Chin, where are you going? Can I give you a ride? Frant had been waiting for a chance to lick his boots. If he could trick the racing god into driving himself, how happy would that be? Sitting in the front passenger seat and witnessing his skills with one's own eyes was the dream of every car lover in the world. Therefore, people sometimes had similarities, no matter if they were noble or ordinary. In terms of social status, Ruffy and Frant were similar. Maybe Ruffy was higher, but when it came to racing, Ruffy could only be regarded as a middle-level backbone in the Chinese racing world, while Frant was almost at the top of the world. In the beginning, Ruffy was also hot-headed in order to get into Qin Guang's car. Now it was Frant, the heir of the racing king, who was also at the top of the pyramid of the underground racing world, wanted to get into Qin Guang's car with the same feelings as Ruffy. They were both brainless fans looking at a god. Qin Guang looked at the map. It would take about an hour to drive from here to Sun Xiaoshuan School. The distance was a bit far. Why not take Frant's car? Pierce was still reluctant to part with Qin Guang, but it was futile. His Qilin arm's faith was already maxed out. Although he could earn money by punching, it was a waste of time and effort. Furthermore, he didn't receive any faith, so Qin Guang wasn't interested in it. Right? Not being able to make you a professional boxer must be the biggest regret of my life. Pierce was very emotional as he pulled on Qin Guang's clothes. Qin Guang tried to struggle. Mr. Pierce, I understand your feelings, but this is really not possible in the short term. How about this? I promise you, if I really want to be a professional boxer in the future, I will definitely find you, not anyone else, okay? Pierce reluctantly let go of his hand. Okay. Goodbye? Qin Guang was afraid of being pestered by this guy again, so he simply turned around and got into Frant's car. Let's go to the Detroit Institute of Technology. Why is there a steering wheel in front of me? Is this the driver's seat? Qin Guang looked at Frant, who was sitting in the front passenger seat with a smug face. Well, this guy was vicious. He wanted to learn the technique without paying the tuition fee, so he sat in the front passenger seat and waited for Qin Guang to take the bait. Well, it made no difference whether he drove or Frank drove, and if he got his license checked, he could just blame it on Frank. As for the tuition fee, forget it. The old man is now rich and willful. He doesn't need this little bit of money from you, so I'll let you take advantage of it. Moreover, Qin Guang also knew that Fran and wouldn't really learn anything. Off you go. Wait. Before Pierce finished his words, Qin Guang had already started the car and ran away. Seeing the car quickly disappear at the intersection, Pierce stomped his feet angrily. It runs really fast. Bowman came up from the side and comforted him. Don't be sad, Mr. Pierce. In fact, I really understand him. If I had such terrible strength, I would also feel that competing with others is very boring. I understand the reason, but I just can't accept it. Pierce was still beating his chest and stamping his feet. He was not the only one who felt sorry for himself. Bai Ling also looked at Marco with a blank face and pointed to her full chest. Most of her cleavage was exposed, and it looked very attractive. She finally realized that she had been flirting in front of Qin Guang for 2 whole days. Apart from a lustful look from time to time, this guy did not show any extra emotions to her from beginning to end. This doesn't make sense. Am I not beautiful enough? Marco, have I become uglier recently? Bai Ling asked. The photographer Marco shook his head. Probably not. Then why is he doing this? I don't know. Sigh. Bai Ling felt a little wronged. She had been following behind this guy for 2 days. Although she did not talk much with him, it was undeniable that this guy could really make money. The proper rich husband was hard to find. Once she got close to him, she could have as many luxuries as she wanted in this life. Unfortunately, it was not that Bai Ling did not work hard, but that the enemy was too cunning. Mr. Chen, why did you reject Mr. Pierce so decisively? If you are interested, it is not difficult to become a world-class boxing champion, right? Frante tried to find something to say while using his phone to search for directions to the Detroit Institute of Technology. At the same time, his eyes were busy looking at Qin Guang's movements when he was driving, hoping to secretly learn some techniques. He thought to himself that it was really enjoyable. Even if it was an ordinary daily drive, Mr. Chen's every move was full of extremely smooth feeling. It was simply art. Forget it. What's the point of boxing? It's too boring. Compared to this, I might as well participate in the WRC rally. At least I can earn some faith. Anyway, I have no interest in boxing at all. Chen Guang almost spilled the beans. On the other side, Fronte immediately fell into ecstasy. Oh my God. Mr. Chen, are you going to participate in the WRC? Very good. Although the intensity of the rally is not as good as our underground racing, there is no doubt that the latest technologies developed by major companies are generally first put into practice in the major rallies. Especially the WRC, it is a gathering of talents. Whether it is the cars or the drivers, they can be regarded as the best. Of course, compared to you, those drivers are as immature as babies. If you are willing to participate, you will definitely be able to defeat everyone like in the arm wrestling competition these 2 days. Who said that Chinese people liked to flatter others, while foreigners were upright and plain-spoken? If foreigners didn't flatter you, it was because you weren't good enough to convince them. Look at Fronte, how smooth was his flattery. Chen Guang was satisfied and gave him a silent thumbs up. That's right. Although there is no doubt about your skills, your current reputation is still stuck in our underground racing circle. If you want to obtain more global recognition, it is indeed necessary to show convincing results in such a large-scale competition. How about this? My friend is the person in charge of the Lanyu team, and I have a bit of shares in the Lanyu team. If you want to participate, I can help you contact the Lanyu team at any time and let you become their contracted driver. The Lanyu team that Fronte mentioned was something that Chen Guang had heard of many times when he watched the competition on the sports channel. It was considered a tyrannical top rally team. In recent years, they had won many championships in large and small competitions. They were the standard of the industry's powerhouse. Is that so? Then I can participate in the WRC right away? That's not bad. Chen Guang was overjoyed. It was easy to get things done with more acquaintances. Unexpectedly, Fronte shook his head awkwardly. According to the rules of the FIA, the WRC competition is not purely based on the team's results. Even if Mr. Chen becomes a driver for Lanyu, I'm afraid you will have to register first and start from a small competition to slowly accumulate points. When your points reach the standard, then you can participate in next year's WRC. Chen Guang waved his hand. All right, you don't have to say any more. We'll talk about this later. Damn, it's so troublesome to be a backdoor entrant. Next year my ass. The Racing God Training Grounds faith points are already quite high. It's not worth playing with the FIA's ridiculous rules for a year. I'm not that bored. If you're not happy, I'll organize my own competition, alright? I'll have another Racing God Throne Challenge, alright? You're making me angry. I'm not playing with you. After coming to Detroit for 2 or 3 days, Chen Guang had not properly observed the city. Today, he was driving on the road and he could finally calm down and look around. The city of Detroit enjoyed a reputation above its own level in Huaxia. On one hand, it was because the city had a very famous NBA team, the Detroit Pistons. On the other hand, it was because of the city's special position in history. It was known as the City of Cars. Due to the changes in the world's overall economic environment, the city had gradually become desolate and even went bankrupt 2 years ago. But once upon a time, Detroit represented the pinnacle of the entire North American and even the world's automobile industry. Even in China, far away, there were countless people who yearned for this city. But yellow flowers will eventually wither, and banquets will eventually disperse. Today's Detroit looked exceptionally desolate. The city seemed to have not recovered from the heavy blow of bankruptcy. It was like an old man with a serious illness. The spacious road that used to be filled with all kinds of heavy trucks was now only being driven by Chen Guang and Fronte's modified off-road vehicle that was extremely powerful. The roadside was even more sparsely populated. The car drove for a long time without seeing a single person walking on the road. Fronte enthusiastically acted as a tour guide. Mr. Chen, this used to be a general assembly workshop, but now they have abandoned the production base here and transferred more assembly work to Southeast Asia and China. This is the Buick workshop. After a long time, the two drove out of the city and went straight to the town where the Detroit Polytechnic University was located. It looked even more desolate outside. The sunset at dusk shone down, slanting on the spacious but empty 8-lane road. The shadows of the car were long, making it look even more desolate. As a Chinese with a large population, Chen Guang was really uncomfortable with this situation. He teased Fronte, your hometown is really desolate. Those who know would think I came to the United States, and those who don't know would think I went to the countryside of China. Fronte felt embarrassed. If it wasn't Chen Guang who said this, he would probably be furious. He really didn't give him any face. But on second thought, he was a little frustrated. Yes, but when it gets dark, it will become a little livelier. That's pretty good. Do Americans like to go out at night? Fronte was even more embarrassed. No, it's just that at night, many people will come out to do some transactions that are not convenient to see the light. For example, drugs, bitches, or something else. The security situation in Detroit is actually very bad. You know, it's much easier to get a gun in North America than in China. It's full of gangs. Sigh, actually I'm the same. Fronte was very disappointed. He always felt that it was a very shameful thing to talk about his hometown in front of the god of cars, but it was the truth. Chapter 705. Chen Guang sensed the change in his mood and patted him on the shoulder. Fronte, don't worry about this. It's just work. You don't look like a bad person. I understand you. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Right? Is the security in the town near the Polytechnic University okay? Chen Guang suddenly thought of this and asked. Neil is okay. These people rarely move around there. The Polytechnic University is also a very well-known institution. The security there is not bad. Chen Guang said casually, don't talk nonsense. I saw the news from the United States on our country's global network. There are shootings on the streets every day. If you're not careful, you'll be shot while you're walking. There's no such thing as a safe place. It's a bit terrible. Recently, there have been a lot of extremists who have been restless. Fronte couldn't beat Chen Guang in an argument. But 5 minutes later, Chen Guang regretted it. Fronte received an urgent notification on his phone. Gunshots are suspected to be coming from the Detroit Polytechnic University in Neil. Citizens in the nearby area, please take cover and protect yourselves. Franrent had scarcely uttered the first when the second followed. The shooting has caused 3 injuries and 1 death. There are 2 criminals, and more than 10 hostages are currently being held. After the second message was read, the third message came. The cause of the incident is suspected to be a potential extremist who is suffering from academic difficulties and is planning to retaliate against the university. This is a long-planned terrorist action. The relevant intelligence personnel of the FBI believe that there is almost no possibility of successful negotiations. The fourth message that followed made Chen Guang completely explode. 1 hostage has been killed. Of the 11 hostages still being held, 6 are Americans, 3 are Canadians, 1 is British, and 1 is a Chinese girl. They are now in a very dangerous situation. Chen Guang wished that he could give himself a slap. Damn it. I give up on my jinx. He could only pray in his heart that it was not Sun Xiaoshuan. She was going back to China tomorrow. Don't make such a big mess. Fronte, do you have photos and information on the hostages? Chen Guang frantically stepped on the accelerator and turned his head to ask Fronte squinted at the phone. Mr. Chen, I can't see it clearly. The camera is too far away, so it's very blurry. Why don't we go back? The town of Neil isn't very safe right now. Chen Guang shook his head. I'm afraid not. I don't have a good feeling. I have to go and take a look. After waiting for 2 or 3 minutes, Franrent finally received a new notification on his phone. The FBI's intelligence organization reacted quickly and quickly confirmed the identities of the 2 criminals. In the United States, where there had been 74 school shootings in 2 years, their emergency intelligence agency had been thoroughly tempered. Their professionalism was extremely high, and they were extremely efficient. Oh no, they are indeed 2 potential extremists. It is likely that they have been planning this operation since 2 months ago. Now they have all the hostages in the gymnasium. If I'm not wrong, They have also planted bombs in the gymnasium. Frante said dejectedly after reading the relevant information. A normal person's phone definitely wouldn't receive such detailed information. Most people would just be told to hide at home and not go out. However, the Shack family was prominent in Detroit and had a lot of influence in the political world. These important information would usually be sent to the phones of prominent people. This was democracy in the United States. Have the hostages' information been sent over yet? Chen Guang asked anxiously. Frante shook his head. No, but Mr. Chen, we really can't go any further. According to the intelligence, the two people have a very strong tendency to self-destruct. In order to stop the police and the FBI, the other party most likely planted bombs near the intersection in and out of Neil. There's only one road, so maybe the bomb is right in front of us and will explode at any time. Stop the car, I beg you. Chen Guang's hand that was gripping the steering wheel also trembled. He had long felt that the United States was very scary. Today, he saw that it was indeed a well-deserved reputation. Two random terrorists actually had such high standards. How could they let people live happily? God, please don't let it be Sun Xiaoxuan. Frante, if you're afraid, you can get out of the car, but I really can't go back now. Chen Guang still didn't slow down and continued to sprint forward. Frante looked at Chen Guang in despair. He didn't understand what was going on with the racing god. But I'm not a coward, but I can't die in vain. My friend is at the Detroit Institute of Technology. She's Chinese. Girl, do you understand? The hostage is very likely to be a very important friend of mine. I have a pair of hands covered in blood. I've killed many more people than those two terrorists. I have the ability to save her, so I have to go. Do you understand? Chen Guang's eyes stared straight ahead. On both sides of the wide road, the trees were flying past. The bright xenon lamps were sniped by the lenses, turning into two beams of light that stabbed into the distance like two swords. At this time, Chen Guang, sitting in the car, was like a swordsman traveling the world with a sword. As for Frante, who was trying to dissuade him, he looked like a trembling follower holding a sword. But there's more than one Chinese girl in the Polytechnic University. She may not be your friend, right? So I asked you for the hostage's information. Even if the hostage may not be my friend, I think I should go to her side at this time. Frante looked at Chen Guang's determined eyes. Then I'll call my friend in the FBI. Okay, thanks. 3 minutes later, Frante finally dug out the information of the hostages after a series of persuasion and threats. Mr. Chen, the hostage's name is Shaoxin. Chen Guang's eyes widened. After about 5 seconds of silence, 3 earth-shattering words came out of his mouth. F***CK. What else could he say other than saying 3 Hellflame golden-armored silver-haired celestial hound? Was there any situation in this world that could be more unlucky and magical than this? There were so many students and teachers in the huge Detroit Polytechnic University, but there just had to be a Chinese girl taken hostage, and it just had to be Sun Xiaoxuan. This kind of thing was basically like walking on the street and accidentally touching your trouser pocket, only to find that there were still 2 coins hidden in the middle of your trouser pocket last year. Then, you casually bought a lottery ticket to calm yourself down, only to end up winning 5 million. Well, if it was a blessing, it wasn't a curse. If it was a curse, it couldn't be avoided. Perhaps Sun Xiaoxuan was fated to have this calamity. Chen Zhao was also in Detroit today, and he was on his way to Neil. This should be the solution to this calamity in her life, the only one who could escape first in the great divination number. Pinching the satchel next to him, the heavenly Holy Grail was still lying inside. Chen Guang felt a little more at ease. Last time, when he was still weak, with the help of the heavenly Holy Grail and Azure, he forcibly rescued Wu Tong from a top assassin like Sergio. Today, he only had to deal with 2 terrifying young men who played with bombs. His current strength was also not what it used to be, and he had many tricks up his sleeves. There was absolutely no possibility of escape or retreat. As a man, he had to bite the bullet and face it head-on. The next second, Chen Guang stepped on the brake again and slowly stopped the car by the side of the road. He turned his head and said to Frant, "Frant, get out of the car. Get out of the car, Frant." I really have to go this time. I'll borrow your car. If you break it, I'll pay you double. Frant was a little hesitant. He wanted to follow Qin Guang, but his will wasn't strong enough. Mr. Qin, I told you to get out of the car. Do you think I'm joking with you? I don't have much time to waste with you. Get out. Qin Guang suddenly became angry. He understood Frant's hesitation, but it didn't mean that he had time for him to waste like this. On the other side, Sun Xiaoxuan was being held hostage by someone else. He didn't have the time to play with Sun Xiaoxuan's memories like in American TV series and Japanese manga. After that, he finally made up his mind to go out and save the world. Besides, I'm the superhero who's going to save the world. I don't need you. Of course, Qin Guang didn't blame Frant. After all, he and Qin Guang were just ordinary friends. They didn't have that kind of friendship. Frant had no obligation and need to accompany Qin Guang to take risks. Even if he didn't get out of the car now, he would definitely mention it again after driving for a while. It was better to just give it now, so he didn't owe him anything. Hearing Qin Guang's sudden shout, Frant's mind suddenly went blank. He quickly opened the door and jumped out. Qin Guang looked at his back and said loudly, "Anyway, thank you, Frant." At the same time, the engine made a crazy roar again, and the off-road vehicle rushed forward with burning tires. Looking at the off-road vehicle that was quickly getting further and further away, Frant's heart was extremely complicated. There was some relief, some regret, but most of it hid a lingering joy. Of course, he also knew very well that it was this joy that doomed him and Qin Guang to become real friends. He was just a passerby compared to the god of racing. Sun Xiaoxuan curled up her body and hid in the crowd. She was relatively small, and compared to the other hostages, she was petite and inconspicuous. Her mind was in a mess. She kept replaying the scene where the man was shot in the back and fell to the ground, howling in pain. After struggling for a long time, there was no more movement. Her ears were buzzing, and she didn't know if the gunshot was still in her ears or if she was hallucinating. Her face was covered with cold sweat, and her heart had never been beating so fast. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she might not have understood how fragile human life was. Such a fresh human life was gone with a single shot. The blonde girl next to Sun Xiaoxuan kept sobbing in a low voice. It was very difficult for her to bear it, and she wanted to stuff her hand into her mouth, but her shoulders and nose were still twitching uncontrollably. The girl didn't know the hostage who tried to escape at first but was shot dead. She just lost control of her emotions because of excessive fear. Compared to this girl, although Sun Xiaoxuan was also afraid, she did a much better job. No matter how fast her heart beat, or how much sweat flowed down her face, she didn't make a sound. She hid in the crowd like a statue and became inconspicuous. Sun Xiaoxuan kept telling herself, "I can't die, I can't die." Chapter 706. Sun Xiaoxuan, who had read some school shooting and terrorist attack files before going abroad, knew very well that the criminals in front of them were the scariest kind of people. They were scarier than terrorists who only asked for money or some kind of exchange. They didn't ask for anything, they just wanted to take revenge on the world. They hadn't made a move yet, but it didn't mean that they would let everyone here go. They were just waiting for more people to know about this, waiting for more and more reports and onlookers, as well as the police and the FBI. They wanted to make things more sensational and finally destroy everything in front of them in front of the eyes of the most people, including themselves and the hostages. Then, the group of people was probably just struggling at death's door. Perhaps there was no chance of survival. Sun Xiaoxuan sometimes seemed very weak, but it didn't mean that she really didn't have a mind of her own. She was a good class monitor during her 3 years in college, managed the class affairs in an orderly manner, and handled the relationship between her classmates flawlessly. At the same time, she didn't fall behind in her studies at all. In fact, she was a much more tenacious person than she looked. This was the case at this time. The more dangerous the situation was, the more nervous she was, and the more her mind was in a mess. Instead, she was extremely clear about the current situation and situation in her mind. Unfortunately, calmness couldn't change the current situation. The more she thought about it, the more despair she felt. No, I can't continue to think about this. Otherwise, I will cry like the girl next to me, right? I have to distract myself. She kept thinking about other things in her mind, forcing herself not to look at the corpse that fell 7 or 8 meters away, and the pool of blood that spread out from his body on the ground. Only in this way could she completely control her emotions, and only then could she make her sense of existence appear less and less, just like on TV. It would be best if she was completely unnoticed and forgotten by the two terrible lunatics. In this situation, there weren't many people and things that she could focus her attention on. Her parents, who were far away in China, probably didn't know about this yet. They should have just woken up. At this time, Dad might be whistling to the underground parking lot, igniting his beloved polo car, and driving to the exit. His mom, who particularly disliked the stuffy smell of the underground garage, was probably touching up her makeup in front of the vanity mirror at the entrance of the neighborhood. She was muttering to herself about why his dad wasn't driving the car out yet. He was always so slow. These ordinary scenes appeared in her mind in this situation, but it made her heart throb with pain. If I die and the news spreads back to the country, my father, mother, grandparents, uncle, aunt, cousin, and the others will definitely cry their hearts out, right? No, I can't be like this anymore. I have to think of something happy. Sun Xiaoxuan silently cheered herself on and shifted her attention to Qin Guang. How on earth did I fall in love with that guy? Since when did she subconsciously look for him every time she entered the classroom? Did it start from freshman year? Sun Xiaoxuan actually couldn't remember. It seemed that she and Qin Guang didn't have any deep memories. It was so plain, without any warning or reason, that she couldn't help but fall in love with him. This was different from the TV series. There wasn't so much excitement, and there was no separation of life and death. However, Sun Xiaoxuan didn't regret it. She knew very well that this was real life, a real life. Do you have to find a reason to fall in love with someone? If you can really find a reason, then maybe it's not just pure love, right? Sometimes Gaoya scolded her. Although Sun Xiaoxuan never admitted it, she knew in her heart that she was right. It's not like no one wants him. Why do you put yourself so low? Why do you have to only look at him? In the past, Sun Xiaoxuan had never directly answered Gaoya's questions. Now, she could only silently say in her heart, Gaoya, I still don't know. Even now, I might die in the next second. If you want me to find a reason, I also don't know. I just can't control my heart and eyes. What can I do? Perhaps what happened to Pan Jiang was a very memorable thing, but compared to what he experienced in Shangjiang, it was really not worth mentioning. Sun Xiaoxuan often envied others. She envied Jin Shiyue, who could pretend to be his girlfriend to protect him when he was in a difficult situation. She envied Teacher Zhua, who could stand with him in the court against Wang Ren. She envied Wenwen, who was so perfect that it seemed that women standing beside her would pale in comparison. More importantly, she, who was like a goddess, could be more open to Qin Guang than herself. Especially after seeing his desperate efforts in Shangjiang, Sun Xiaoxuan felt that she really didn't deserve Qin Guang. She also wanted to give up more than once, but she never succeeded. She couldn't bear to. From time to time, she would also think about how she wished that one day, she could be like the others and experience more things with him. She could either give up directly, or perhaps, she could walk into his heart a little more. But she didn't expect this situation to come without warning, and it came so violently. It even made people want to give up the hope of living from the beginning. By the way, Qin Guang seems to be in Detroit now. Right now, he should have just finished his world arm wrestling competition. Maybe he is at the celebration party, clinking glasses with people, drinking with people, and laughing with people. If the news of this matter is broadcast on TV, will he see it? If he sees it, what will he think? Will he be sad for my death? Will he stand in front of my tombstone and sprinkle a flower petal for me? Can I touch his cheek in the state of my soul and hear him say that he misses me or likes me? Sun Xiaoxuan touched her cheek. She had held back for so long and had never shed a tear. But when she thought of Qin Guang, her tears fell uncontrollably, streaking down her cheeks and dripping on the ground. But her body didn't tremble, and she didn't choke. It was just that the tears couldn't stop flowing out of her eyes, like a broken dam. Her vision was hazy. No matter how she rubbed her eyes, she couldn't see anything clearly. But the picture in her mind became clearer. The dusty memories in her mind seemed to be blown away by a gust of wind, revealing the dribs and drabs hidden under the sand. Classmate, are you also in the environmental sciences? My name is Qin Guang, nice to meet you. Do you need me to help you move things? Our class monitor can only be Sun Xiaoxuan. You asked me why I hit Pan Jiang? He played with someone else's girlfriend for a few days and then dumped her. He took advantage of her and still acted innocent. He talks about it all the time. Now all the boys and girls want to quit school. No one cares about this kind of scum, but I do. Class monitor son, He-Ming's family is so poor, why can't he get a stipend? What? There are no more spots? There are only 3 spots in a class? How about this? You tell He-Ming that the counselor gave us another one, then give him the 2,000 yuan. It's okay, you know I don't lack money. He-Ming often turns on the water for me, I owe him a lot of favors. There's a senior sister who committed suicide? *CK. This Wang bastard, class monitor's son, I'm warning you, you have to be careful. Don't worry, if that Wang bastard really comes looking for trouble, tell me, is there still any law? Okay, I promise you as long as Pan Jiang doesn't come looking for trouble and doesn't always look like a bear, I'll definitely get along with him. Class monitor, save me, I'm level 4 again. I swear, I'm really studying hard. Class monitor, help me apply for a day off tomorrow, I have something to do. It's nothing, there's really nothing at home. I'm not tired, driving is more interesting than studying. Why are you guys donating money to me, what are you talking about? Even if the sky falls down, I can hold it up. My mom can too, who doesn't have an illness? Small problem, small problem. All the images, in the end, condensed into a surveillance video. Chen Guang appeared in the hall of Qin Yaxian, kicked open the door of the private room, and ruthlessly knocked Pan Jiang to the ground. That's right, this was the scene of him beating up Pan Jiang in Qin Yaxian to save Sun Xiaoxuan. Sun Xiaoxuan covered his mouth tightly, biting hard on his palms, using the pain to suppress the urge to choke and cry out. I can't cry. I can't accept this. I don't want to die. I wish I could leave this place safely, with the courage to escape from death, stand in front of him bravely, and force him to say, I like you. Bang. Gunshots rang out again. This time, without any warning, 2 lunatics killed a hostage. It was the girl who had been sobbing beside Sun Xiaoxuan. How annoying! The lunatic who fired the shot mumbled, his face full of silence, then turned back to look out the window. Police lights were flashing outside. Neil Town's local police department had already turned out in full force and gathered outside the stadium, but it was useless. The police force of a small town was simply not enough. They didn't even have a professional sniper. It was impossible to threaten these 2 hostage-takers. Sun Xiaoxuan bit her palms even harder. The closer death was, the more terrified she was, and the more unwilling she was. She actually knew very well that with Chen Guang's personality, if he really found out about this at this time, even if he couldn't make it in time, he would definitely rush over like a madman. Perhaps it was useless, but he was that kind of person. Just like what happened in Wenxing Town, although she didn't know what happened after he left the internet cafe, or what he did, the result was that the matter that caused such a huge commotion actually disappeared without a trace. No one told Sun Xiaoxuan the truth of that incident, but a girl's 6th sense told her that it must have something to do with Qin Guang, because he disappeared for a few days after that because of his injuries. Yes, if he knew, he would definitely come today. Chapter 707. Emotionally, Sun Xiaoxuan wished that Qin Guang could descend from the sky on a rainbow cloud, just like how he did in the movies. He wanted Qin Guang to beat the 2 criminals to the ground and help him up. I'm here, everything's fine now. Qin Guang's gentle voice was enchanting. It was exactly the same as when he saved her from Pan Jiang's hands. But reason told Sun Xiaoxuan that it was impossible. It had only been 3 minutes, and these people had already killed 2 hostages. There wasn't much time left for the hostages. Death might come in the next second. She might be the last hostage to be killed, but it definitely wouldn't take more than half an hour. Chen Guang didn't have wings, so it was impossible for him to fly from Detroit to Neil. This time, the criminal wasn't Pan Jiang, but a madman with loaded guns, and there were bombs buried in the stadium. Even if he came, he wouldn't be able to do anything about the bombs the criminals had thrown everywhere. He might die here too. As soon as she realized this problem, Sun Xiaoxuan felt as if cold water had been poured over her head, and all the distracting thoughts in her mind disappeared. She was even more nervous and terrified than before. She no longer prayed that Qin Guang would turn into a god and descend from the sky to save her. Instead, she prayed that he would stay at the party, not watch the news, not care about what happened in Neil, and not come. But that was impossible. There was no way Detroit wouldn't report such a big thing. There was no way he wouldn't see it, and there was no way he wouldn't come. What should I do? Sun Xiaoxuan rubbed her eyes hard and took a deep breath. She raised her head and looked at the two madmen in front of her. A crazy idea spun in her head. If I die now, there's no point in him coming. I'm going to die anyway. What difference does it make if I die sooner or later? Son, don't worry. I'll definitely protect you, the American beside her said in a low voice. Just then, the white American next to her whispered. His voice was so low that it sounded like it was trembling. The courage she had just mustered was instantly swallowed up. Sun Xiaoxuan lowered her head again and whispered, Brad, don't talk. Brad was the leader of the experimental group she had been assigned to for the past 2 months. In the past 2 months, he had pursued Sun Xiaoxuan both openly and covertly, but of course, all of his efforts had come to naught. This time, the two of them were taken hostage together because Sun Xiaoxuan was leaving tomorrow. Brad purposely waited for her on the side of the road when she passed by the stadium on her way back to the dormitory to make a last struggle. When Sun Xiaoxuan passed by, he was pulled by this guy to confess to him. After some entanglement, he should have left the vicinity of the stadium long ago, but he forcibly delayed until the two gangsters made their move. At this time, he couldn't run away even if he wanted to. Sun Xiaoxuan didn't want to talk to Brad right now. She really didn't need him to say anything nice at this time. She didn't believe that Brad had the courage to sacrifice himself for others, and she didn't think that Brad's promise would make any difference. It wasn't the first time he had rejected her tactfully and clearly, but he was always self-righteous, which was very annoying. Little brat, shut up. What are you mumbling about? The two of you are next. Brad's self-righteous nonsense had indeed caused trouble when he was about to die. One of the extremists threw a glance at him and then said coldly. Brad's whole body stiffened and he stammered. I didn't. You didn't what? Weren't you talking to this black-haired girl just now? I know you guys are up to no good, but it's meaningless. The rest of you, you should thank these two people. The next one to die will be this man, and the next one will be this woman. The others can still live for a while. The gangster said as he looked at the crowd with a fierce expression. The others listened and couldn't help but secretly laugh. Brad was dumbfounded. No reason. We don't need to give any explanation to the dead. Don't you want to die? The other gangster held a submachine gun in one hand and a remote control to detonate the bomb in the other hand said coldly. Brad hurriedly nodded. Yes, sir, my father is very rich. As long as you let me go, I am willing to let my father donate all his wealth to support the holy war. Come on, we've had enough of the tricks of you heathen liars. I'll give you a call. If you convince your father to donate now, I might consider believing you. You still have 5 minutes. If my uncle can get $30 million in 5 minutes, I can let you live to the end. If you're lucky, you might still be able to escape. But the next one to die will be this girl. You don't have any objections, do you? The gangster holding the remote control smiled sinisterly. Brad was stunned, and he looked at Sun Xiaoxuan apologetically. Sun Xiaoxuan smiled bitterly. Brad, don't mind me. She knew it would be like this. Some people said nice things, but it was meaningless. When it came to a life and death situation, everyone would make the best choice for themselves. But she didn't really hate Brad. If she had a choice, of course she didn't want to die. But it was better this way. The sooner she died, the sooner Qin Guang would get the news. Then he wouldn't do anything stupid, right? Sure enough, Brad took the phone and started to make a call without hesitation. Kaboom! While Brad was on the phone, the sound of a violent explosion came from afar. Flames soared into the sky, illuminating the night sky. The gangster with the hideous face smiled proudly. The FBI is a bunch of idiots. Don't they know that we've prepared a sensor bomb outside the town? Serves them right. The person holding the remote control said curiously, something's not right. If it was the FBI, they would have sent a helicopter here. They aren't that stupid. But if it was the army on the ground, they wouldn't have arrived so quickly. Then who could it be? Why would an idiot drive to Neil Town in this situation? Forget it. Don't worry about it. There are a lot of sensor bombs anyway. It doesn't matter if one is detonated. The more people die, the better. The person holding the remote control said confidently. Just then, a second explosion suddenly came. It was louder and closer than the first one. Damn it. What's going on? The first and second bombs were at least 400 meters apart. It only took 4 seconds for them to detonate? What the hell happened? Could it be a suicide attack? The tank? That's impossible. The person holding the remote control was a little unsettled. His subconscious told him that it was very likely that 2 bombs were detonated one after another by a car that was speeding at least 300 kilometers per hour. But that was definitely not possible. There wasn't a straight road outside of Neil Town. No matter what kind of car it was, it wouldn't be able to drive 300 kilometers per hour. Moreover, the car should have been blown up into the sky when the first bomb was detonated. Perhaps after the first bomb was detonated, the car maintained its inertia, so it detonated the second bomb? 4 seconds later, the third explosion rang out, and the car advanced another 400 meters. What the hell? Chapter 708. Chen Guang slammed on the gas pedal as he focused on the road ahead. His mind was blank, without any extra thoughts. He knew that a bomb could explode at any time, but he did not plan to slow down. He only wanted to drive faster. He was betting on one thing. No matter what kind of bomb, even if it was a landmine, there would be a time for it to explode. Although the 2 men were extremists and knew about planting bombs, there was no reason for them to have the same technical means as the military. It was impossible for them to have the time and ability to plant a landmine in the middle of the road. They could only use another method, which was to prepare the bomb by calculating beforehand. Therefore, it did not matter even if his car was detected by the detonation device. As long as he was fast enough, faster than they could imagine, he would be able to surpass the enemy's advance and escape the explosion range before he was blown away. Franren's car was very powerful. Even though it was just an off-road vehicle, it had far more power than a normal sports car. Apart from that, the body of the car had been specially reinforced and had a certain degree of explosion-proof ability. There would indeed be danger, but it was not unbearable. The lights in front gradually brightened, and the street lamps on both sides of the road became denser. They were getting closer and closer to the town of Neil. The off-road vehicle turned into a stream of light, whistling through the wide bends. Chen Guang held the steering wheel firmly with his left hand, while his right hand was on the manual gear lever, constantly changing gears. His left foot and right hand seemed to be playing a beautiful piece of music at that moment, completely maximizing the car's performance. If he wanted to get out of the explosion range before he was blown away, he had to be as fast as he could. The faster, the better. If an ordinary driver were to drive this car on such a spacious road, they would be able to reach a speed of about 220 kilometers per hour without flying. If it was Franrent or a normal driver, they could control the car steadily at around 260 kilometers per hour, which was about the limit of a normal human. However, the person in the car today was Chen Guang, the most powerful driving god in human history. He could perform as well as the car's performance. It was never the limit of a human that could restrain him, but the limits of the car's performance. At that moment, Chen Guang's speed was 350 kilometers per hour. It was close to 100 meters per second. Because they were afraid of exposing their intentions, the 2 criminals did not dig up the road to hide the bomb underneath. Instead, they hid it under the roadbed on the side of the road and detonated it with a far-infrared sensor. From the time the infrared beam was cut off to the detonation of the bomb, even the fastest reaction would take 2 to 3 seconds. Based on the normal speed of the car, which was 150 kilometers to 200 kilometers per hour, the two of them buried the bomb about 170 meters in front of the sensor. This way, it would explode directly when the car passed by. Even if there was some error with the power of the bomb, as long as the error was within 50 meters, it would not be a problem. The impact of the instantaneous explosion would be enough to send the car flying. Their plan was flawless. Unfortunately, they encountered Qin Guang, who was traveling at a speed of 350 kilometers per hour. By the time the explosion happened, Qin Guang had already rushed forward nearly 300 meters, more than 100 meters away from the explosion point. The power of the explosion was completely left behind. The flames followed the heat wave and chased after the back of the car like a ferocious beast, temporarily enveloping half of the car. However, the impact had already been greatly reduced. At the same time, Qin Guang's speed was too fast, and he rushed out of the flames in an instant. The back half of the off-road vehicle was covered in flames, and it was like a hell horse from the depths of hell roaring past. It looked very shocking, but it was actually not that big of a deal. The time that the flames enveloped the car was too short, and the body of the car did not suffer too much damage. Only a few pieces of gravel hit it, but they could not even break the bulletproof glass. Qin Guang clenched his fists tightly. He had guessed correctly. The old man was traveling at 350 kilometers per hour on this road. Let's see how you're going to calculate it. Even if the flames behind you soared into the sky, I will only leave you in the dust. The first bomb, the second, and the third, from several kilometers outside of Neil all the way to the entrance of the town, the two bandits had buried a total of 10 bombs in quick succession. The road was blown into flames, and sparks flew everywhere. The road for several kilometers had turned into a sea of flames. If one looked down from the sky, they would even see that the places where the 10 bombs had exploded had turned into a fire dragon. The scene was like hell on earth. However, it was all useless. Qin Guang and his off-road vehicle were still advancing forward. The residents of Neil Town trembled in fear from the continuous explosions. They carefully looked out from their windows, and they were scared out of their wits by the sea of flames they saw along the way. What was even more frightening was that the explosions had not ended. They would still explode every few seconds, and they were quickly approaching the town. The residents whose houses were closer to the road hurriedly ran out of their houses. Who knew if there were bombs buried under their houses? Abominable extremists. They will definitely go to hell after they die. Claire, don't talk nonsense, hurry up and run. A middle-aged man stood by the side of the road, urging his son who was slowly walking out. This family's house was next to the road, and their house was right on the side of the road. They were extremely unlucky. Dad, wait for me. The child named Claire sprinted downstairs, holding his beloved PSV in his arms. At this moment, another explosion came from in front of them. The father and son's hearts tightened. It was getting closer and closer, and the explosion was less than 2 kilometers away. Claire, run. Hurry up and run. The man turned around and pulled the terrified child toward the back of the house. They had only taken a few steps when another explosion sounded. It was only a kilometer away from them. Fortunately, there was a trench half the height of a person in front of them. The man had just dug it in his yard, and he planned to transform it into a small pond in a few days. The father and son held hands and jumped down. At the same time, there was another explosion, this time only a few hundred meters away. Little Claire could not resist her curiosity and poked her head out of the trench a little. The man hurriedly stood up and pressed little Claire's head down. Damn it! I told you to get down. Before the man finished speaking, the entrance to the town about 200 or 300 meters away exploded again. The metal signboard with the words, "Welcome to the town of Neil," fell to the ground amidst a violent explosion. Raging flames swept over, accompanied by flying gravel and dirt. When the explosion happened, the middle-aged man and Claire did not even have time to pull their heads back. Then, the two of them stared at the intersection with their mouths wide open, speechless. This was because a car had rushed out of the raging flames. Oh my God! Could it be that the car had been rushing here despite such a terrifying chain of explosions? The father and son looked at each other, but the middle-aged man quickly came back to his senses and pressed his son's head down. The two of them curled up in the trench, listening to the crazy roar of the car's engine gradually fade away. However, there were no more explosions. Thanks to the previous warning, the spacious streets of Neil were now empty. Chen Guang did not even need to slow down. On the other side of the straight road was the Detroit Institute of Technology's gate. At the moment, his car looked a little ragged. Although the gravel that kept smashing into the car did not damage it, the paint on the surface was still full of marks, and there were many cracks on the bulletproof glass. However, the most damaged parts of the car were the 4 rubber wheels. The new type of tires made with the Shack family's black technology barely withstood the continuous onslaught of high temperatures, but at the moment, there were some thick smoke billowing out, and the 2 rear wheels were clearly deformed. There were 7 or 8 police cars parked outside the Detroit Institute of Technology's gate, but most of them were empty. Only 1 or 2 officers in charge of reception were guarding the gate. When he was about 400 or 500 meters away from the Institute of Technology, Chen Guang slowly slowed down and stopped the car by the side of the road. He did not plan to have any unnecessary contact with the police here. The capitalist police were all paid to do their jobs, and Chen Guang had no confidence in these office workers, who had no faith at all. Rather than relying on them, he might as well rely on himself. After getting out of the car, Chen Guang wrapped his satchel around his waist and tried to rummage through the trunk of the car. Then he set off empty-handed. Frant, this so-called Detroit boss, was too weak. He did not even put a Gatling in the trunk. How weak! When other male leads appeared, they would carry a Gatling as they got out of the car and run over everything in their path. Meanwhile, Chen Guang could only sneak around the bushes by the side of the road like a thief. The walls of the Detroit Institute of Technology were not high. Chen Guang found a corner and easily entered the campus. The campus, which was usually bustling with people, was now empty. Only the sound of people coming from the direction of the indoor stadium could be heard from time to time, as well as the flashing police lights. Of course, Master Guang did not come here to die. In fact, he had been calling for help the moment he got out of the car. Lord Azure, don't play dead. Help me, help me, help me. Let me tell you. You know me. I don't usually beg people, but this is a special situation. Don't throw a tantrum. Come and finish this job with me. I won't beg you again in the future. This is the last time. This is really the last time. Having said that, Lioli still didn't make any movements. Chen Guang panicked. Since those B** stards had hidden a bomb in the stadium, without Azure's help, he would basically be sending himself to his death if he went over. Although the old man was very good at fighting and could easily take on an infinite number of Shui Lin, and the old man was also the chief instructor of Shun's special training camp, it did not mean that he was a top-notch special forces soldier. He could not sniff out the hidden bomb with his nose, and he did not know how to defuse it either. Azure still did not respond even after feeling his way to the back of the stadium. Chen Guang stood up, took out the heavenly holy grail from his satchel, and took a deep breath. Now that things have come to this, you forced me to do this. Don't blame me for being merciless. As he spoke, he suddenly pulled up the zipper of his pants. There was no need to say more about what he was going to do next. Those who understood would understand. This was a negotiation between man and God, and it was an extraordinary time. Therefore, extraordinary people had to do extraordinary things. It's dirty, and you're using this cup to drink water. Azure, who had been meditating like an old monk in Yunqing, finally could not sit still this time. Chen Guang snorted. It doesn't matter. It can still be used after washing. Aren't you afraid of being disgusted? What's there to be afraid of? I heard from some friends who are soldiers that when they carry out missions outside and can't find a clean water source. All right, stop talking. I'll help you. Also, don't say that it's the last time. I've heard it so many times that I've gotten calluses. Chapter 709. Actually, it wasn't easy for Azure. Ever since she decided to do something big, she had consumed a lot of her divine power recently. Most of her thoughts and divine power had been used on big things. Usually, When Chen Guang entered the cup realm, she didn't even have the energy to talk to him. Now that she was being threatened by Chen Guang, she felt that her life was tough. Chen Guang, this silly savior, was really a god of traps. About 15 seconds later, just like when she saved Wu Tong, Azure once again used her divine power to scan the inside of the stadium. Then, a 3D image was stuffed into Chen Guang's mind. He didn't know if it was because Azure had become stronger or because the Holy Grail had become more powerful, but this time, the scene that Chen Guang saw was clearer than before. It was no longer a simple 3D image, but more like a low-quality 3D game. Apart from that, the considerate Holy Grail had even planned out a route for Chen Guang. From his current position to the resting room on the top floor where the hostages and criminals were, it had planned out a bright red route of action for him. He just had to follow the route and move forward. Without thinking, Chen Guang pounced toward the mouth of the drainage pipe. He spread his Qilin arms and firmly clasped onto the pipe. Using both his hands and feet, he quickly moved up the pipe. Although he didn't have much experience in leaping onto roofs and vaulting over walls, nor had he learned any lightness skills, he couldn't resist the strength of the Qilin arms and Aeolus legs. Grabbing onto the pipe was like clasping onto it. About 3 minutes had passed since Brad hung up the phone. One of the criminals was standing in front of Brad and Sun Xiaoxuan. The black muzzle was pointed at Sun Xiaoxuan and Brad. "Caucasian, you only have 2 minutes left to live. Even if you're late by 1 second, you'll still die. We don't have much time to waste with you." The madman with the remote control leaned against the wall and said. Next to him was a window. The office on the 3rd floor of the stadium allowed him to have a panoramic view of the situation below. In addition, the only way to break into this office was through the security door. This was really a holy place to perish together with everyone. Brad first glanced at Sun Xiaoxuan with a slightly ashamed expression, then hurriedly said, "Esteemed sir, please don't worry, my father won't let you down, I'm his only son. Whatever you say, I don't care. Our original goal was just a holy war. If we can earn 30 million for the Lord, that's just an additional contribution. After I die, there will be many virgins waiting for me." The man grinned, and a longing expression appeared on his face. But suddenly, he became fierce again. "Hurry up. Call him again to urge him. Damn it, what the hell could have detonated the bombs we planted in Neil? Damn it." He looked very calm, but in fact, he had a bad premonition in his heart. Sun Xiaoxuan saw everything and thought about it. Even though she was getting closer and closer to death, she couldn't get the series of explosions outside Neil 3 minutes ago out of her mind. Sun Xiaoxuan also knew that something was quickly approaching Neil. Judging from the approaching explosions, that thing's speed must be unimaginably fast. It was most likely a car. Who else in the world could drive so fast? Sun Xiaoxuan, who had watched Chen Guang's competition live in Zhu Jingxi's office in the building of Building Loop, knew that other than Chen Guang, there was no one else. He's really here. He's here to save me. Thinking about this, Sun Xiaoxuan was extremely happy and touched. Who didn't want to live well? But at the same time, she was extremely worried. Chen Guang might be really outstanding and he was good at fighting, but he was just a normal person. He wasn't like those martial arts heroes on TV. But there were 2 armed criminals here, and there were bombs everywhere. These 2 lunatics could detonate the bombs at any time. On the other side, Chen Guang jumped onto the roof of the stadium. He planned to follow the route in his head to Sun Xiaoxuan's office, and then rescue Sun Xiaoxuan at lightning speed. But just as he popped his head out from the roof, a gun was pointed at his head. Okay, he admitted that he had underestimated the American police. There were still people who weren't afraid of death. It turned out that there were 2 uninvited guests on the roof. They were 2 of the most elite police officers in the Neil Town Police Department. But even though the 2 of them were on the roof early, they didn't dare to alert the enemy. They were afraid that the 2 criminals would detonate the bombs, so they didn't take action. Chen Guang climbed up the pipe very quickly, making clanking sounds. The 2 police officers knew that someone was coming. "Who's there?" The tall white police officer, who was covered in a bulletproof vest, held his gun with both hands and shouted angrily. He was afraid that this person was an accomplice of the 2 criminals below. Chen Guang looked up at him. Bro, don't shoot. We're on the same side. The two white police officers' eyes widened. Who's on the same side as you? We have different skin colors, okay? Please move the gun away. I don't like being pointed at with a gun. You have to know who the person standing in front of you is. Chen Guang said as he calmly climbed over the edge of the building. Cut the crap. Hands up. Who knows who you are? The police officer who had been pointing his gun at Chen Guang shouted angrily again. The person next to him tugged at him. Jamie, don't be like that. He looks a little familiar. Chen Guang patted the dust off his body. Then let me introduce myself. I'm Chen Guang from Huaxia. Oh, I remember. We just watched your match on ESPN this afternoon. Mr. Chen, I know you. The other police officer came to his senses and patted Jamie's shoulder. Jamie, do you remember? The police officer called Jamie slowly put his gun away and looked at Chen Guang with the dim light. He suddenly realized and said, I didn't expect it to be you. But this place is very dangerous. So you should leave. You may be standing here because you want to be a superhero. I also know that you are very powerful, but this is not an occasion for you to appear. The so-called celebrity treatment still had its advantages. Not to mention that Chen Guang was a new and hot celebrity. He may not be famous internationally, but he was the Superman who had just won the World Arm Wrestling Championship in Detroit. He was the man with the strongest arms on earth. The two white police officers were polite enough. Chen Guang didn't have much time to talk nonsense with them. He changed the subject. Do you think I'm just an ordinary person? Look at my size and think about my strength. To tell you the truth, I'm the director of the Huaxia Special Affairs Bureau, a deputy minister in Huaxia. It should be equivalent to the director of your CIA. You pointed a gun at me just now. This is a major diplomatic incident. Jamie's eyes widened. He thought he had heard wrong. I'm not joking with you. You can immediately call the senior leaders of your country and ask them to contact the senior leaders of Huaxia to confirm my identity. As for now, I have to go save people. I know it's dangerous down there, and I also know that there are bombs, but it's okay. I'm a professional. There are also Huaxia citizens among the hostages. This is within my jurisdiction. If your country has any objections, you can negotiate with my country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Time was of the essence. After coming up, he had already wasted more than half a minute with the two special police officers from Neil Town. Two more police cars arrived outside, and there seemed to be a helicopter flying over from further away. If the behavior of the two criminals was completely consistent with Fronte's information, it was very likely that when the helicopter arrived, everyone would be sent to the sky together. Therefore, Chen Guang asked Azure for help again. He got Azure to add some special effects to his voice. In online games, it could be said to be a charm spell. The effect seemed to be quite good. The two nodded in a daze. They didn't feel that there was anything wrong with what Chen Guang said at all. They let him go just like that. By the way, can you lend me your guns? Chen Guang asked as he rushed to the top of the stairs. Stingy. Then can you lend me a knife? Just now, you pointed a gun at a deputy minister of Huaxia. Your behavior, Chen Guang decided to blackmail them. Sir, this is my tactical dagger. Please take your time. He happily got a dagger. It seemed to be quite useful. Wasting time with these two was not a waste. Chen Guang immediately rushed to the top of the stairs. Jamie and the other two looked at each other, then hurriedly contacted their superiors. Roughly a minute later, the two of them were dumbfounded. Chen Guang's words were actually true. This meant that that person was really a high-ranking Huaxia official with the same status as the director of the CIA. God, isn't he afraid of death? He's such a high-ranking official and he's so young? Are all Huaxia officials this scary? He dares to go to the front lines with this kind of position? Also, what's going on with the two of us? Why was he convinced with just a few words? Why did he let him in without rhyme or reason? Does he know some mysterious Eastern black magic? Did he make us agree to him in a daze? Forget it, don't worry about those details. He is indeed a high-ranking Huaxia official. This is indeed within the scope of his power to interfere. If he is really a top-secret agent, We can only count on him to handle it. As long as he is not afraid of death, there will be no problem. Just thinking about it is still unbelievable. That is an official with the same status as the director of the CIA. Not to mention the two people's minds were filled with black question marks at this time. The director of a certain special department in charge of contacting Huaxia just now clapped his hands hard. No wonder his request was rejected by Huaxia. After all this time, this guy's official rank is even higher than mine. Damn, when did Huaxia officials become so brave and powerful? Chen Guang first entered the stadium, then carefully moved forward along the corner of the wall. God knows where the two people threw the bomb. Chapter 710. Finally, he ran to the warehouse next to the office where the hostages were held. He entered the room in a flash, and then carefully but quickly began to remove the cover of the central air conditioning duct on the ceiling. This time, however, he was very careful and didn't make the slightest sound. He crawled into the duct. The space was very narrow, and he could only move forward little by little. But it was better this way. As long as he didn't court death, he wouldn't make any sound. Finally, he moved little by little to the top of the office. Looking down through the shutter cover, Chen Guang could already see the people in the room and the small black cubes scattered around the room. They looked like mobile phones from many years ago, but there was no doubt that they were remote-controlled bombs. After adjusting the angle again, Chen Guang saw the two criminals. One of them was holding a remote control, which was obviously used to detonate the bomb, and the other just happened to point the gun in his hand at Sun Xiaoxuan in the crowd. Alas, there was no worse situation than this. God knew how powerful these bombs were, but there was no doubt that once they exploded, Sun Xiaoxuan and himself would die without a doubt. But if he chose to deal with the person holding the remote control first, Sun Xiaoxuan would inevitably be shot in the head. Now, he had a flying knife in his hand and the heavenly holy grail in his bag. If he threw these two things out like darts, he might be able to kill the two people at the same time, but it might not be able to completely kill them. Whether the person who detonated the bomb pressed the button or the person holding the gun pulled the trigger, Sun Xiaoxuan would still die. Alas, when people are unlucky, they can't even drink water. If the guy holding the gun aimed at someone else, it would be better, but it just had to be Sun Xiaoxuan. What else could he say other than being unlucky? He had no choice but to negotiate with Lioli, who was omnipotent but had no self-awareness. Madam Lioli, you know, the other party doesn't want to talk to you and throws a dear Ming flower at you. Don't make trouble. If I go down like this, I'll really be finished. I don't have any divine power left. You've almost squeezed it dry, okay? Can't you let me have some peace of mind? Besides, it's really difficult. There are two lunatics sitting in this room. I don't have time to hypnotize them at all. Don't make it difficult for me. Lu Li said in a low voice in the Cloud City. You can't just watch him die. It's not that I can't, but I really can't do it. Just then, a voice rang out in Chen Guang's head. It was Lu Minghua. Sister Lioli, I have a plan. Roughly 10 odd seconds later, Chen Guang took out the popcorn 5S from his bag and placed it in the sky-piercing Holy Grail with a doubtful heart. All right, you don't have to worry about the bomb now, but we can't help you with anything else. Although Chen Guang didn't really understand the principles behind it, since Lioli said so, he believed that she wouldn't take her life as a joke. At this time, the two extremists were also looking at the time again. White guy, 30 seconds left. 20 seconds. Hearing the countdown, Brad's face turned pale. Sir, please wait a moment. After all, that's $30 million. Please give my father more time. At this moment, the phone of the extremist with the remote control suddenly rang. He looked down and grinned. Hamid, Uncle said the money is here. Very good, little girl. You're very beautiful, but you have to die. It's a pity that your love is like a joke. Hammer, who was holding the gun, turned to look at Sun Xiaoxuan and grinned. Sun Xiaoxuan slowly closed her eyes. She couldn't tell what she was feeling. Was she going to die just like this? Forget it. Although she had many regrets, she would make up for it in her next life. In the end, Chen Guang didn't come. But that was fine too. If he came, he would just die together with her. Just then, there was a sudden boom on the office's roof. Chen Guang smashed through the shutters and dashed out from the central air conditioning duct upside down. He had wanted to wait a little longer to see if the guy holding the gun would move the muzzle away temporarily. But now that things had come to this, he couldn't delay any longer. His body was suspended in midair. His right hand gripped the tactical dagger that he had just obtained from Officer Jamie. He flung it fiercely, and the dagger spun in the air as it flew toward Hammer's wrist with lightning speed. From the moment the dagger left his hand to the moment the sharp blade made a circle around Hammer's wrist, only less than 0.2 seconds had passed. Hammer tried to pull the trigger, but no gunshot rang out. His wrist had been sliced off. His wrist that was holding the gun fell to the ground together with the gun. On the other side, half of Chen Guang's body finally fell out. The tip of his foot stepped on the edge of the ventilation duct, and his whole body turned into a shooting star that shot toward Hammer, who was in front of Sun Xiaoxuan. The power of Eola's kick completely erupted, and the alloy ventilation duct that he had used as a fulcrum caved in fiercely as if it had been stepped on by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Sun Xiaoxuan's eyes snapped open. She turned around to look behind her, and her eyes widened in disbelief. Chen Guang really fell from the sky. Her heart skipped a beat, and her breathing felt as if it was being choked by someone. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind, but they all converged into one sentence. Why did you come? Don't you know that you will die if you do this? On the other side, the other extremist who was holding the remote control in one hand and the submachine gun in the other first cried out in alarm. Then he pressed the button on the remote control without any hesitation, and at the same time, his other hand slowly raised the muzzle. Die for me! Chen Guang's body twisted slightly in midair. His right hand formed a fist, and then he swung it back before brazenly swinging it forward, sending a fist smashing toward Hammer from above. Bang! The iron fist smashed heavily into Hammer's chest. This fellow felt as if he had been rammed by a heavy truck traveling at 200 kilometers per hour. He flew backward, and his back clearly protruded. The strength of Chen Guang's angry punch was even greater than the 1088 kilograms he had punched on Pierce's tester the day before yesterday. Hammer's internal organs were directly shaken to pieces. Chen Guang used the recoil of this force to support himself on the ground with his right hand, and with a somersault, he landed in front of Sun Xiaoxuan. The extremist in front of him had already thrown away the remote control after pressing the button, and the submachine gun was now aimed at Chen Guang. Sun Xiaoxuan screamed, "Watch out!" But it was too late. The man had already pulled the trigger, and a bullet was rushing toward Chen Guang. There was no way to avoid it. In this split second, Chen Guang's eyes and body's reaction speed increased to the extreme. He put his palms together and clasped them together to catch the bullet flying toward him. The bullet fiercely brushed past his palms, and blood immediately spurted out of his hands. Then, the bullet ruthlessly hit his chest, causing his body to tremble. Sun Xiaoxuan screamed again in shock, but Chen Guang didn't fall down. Instead, he pounced forward again. The man holding the gun was at a loss. He had clearly hit his chest, and he could even see blood spurting out. So what's going on with him? Why is he still alive and kicking? In fact, he didn't stay in a daze for long. It might have been less than 2 seconds, but Chen Guang had already rushed in front of him, and the familiar heavy right fist smashed into his waist and abdomen. A terrible pressure exploded inside his body, and his eyes instantly turned bloodshot. His whole body flew backward, directly smashing through the glass window and flying out of the house. He was still flying in the air when he stopped breathing. The terrible pressure not only shattered his internal organs, but also caused his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth to bleed. Chen Guang turned around and grinned at Sun Xiaoxuan. "I'm here. Are you okay?" As he spoke, a dark red blood stain spread out from his chest, and soon after, it flowed down. Sun Xiaoxuan's face was pale. His lips and hands trembled as he slowly approached. Seeing the blood stain on Chen Guang's chest, his tears fell like rain. "You were shot," Chen Guang pretended to be fine and shrugged. "I'm fine. It's just a small wound." "You were shot. How could this be a small wound? Why are you so stupid?" Sun Xiaoxuan moved closer and squeezed Qin Guang's shoulders with both hands. More and more tears flowed out of her eyes. Sun, who is he? Brad first went to check on Hamid and found that the man was completely breathless. Then he leaned over to Hamid. Sun Xiaoxuan didn't want to talk to him. Sun, let's get out of here, shall we? Seeing that Sun Xiaoxuan was ignoring him, Brad tried to pull her shoulders again. Get lost. Brad. I don't have time for you. Get away from me. Sun Xiaoxuan had lost her last bit of patience with this guy who didn't know what he was doing. She wasn't as gentle as she usually was. Brad was stunned. He didn't even realize what mistake he had made. On the other side, Chen Guang was already leaning against the wall and slowly falling down. His breath was very weak, and his lips were getting paler and paler. His breathing was getting more and more rapid. Sun Xiaoxuan sat down as well. She just wanted to stay by his side. Brad, let's go. Hurry up and leave. It's not safe here. The other hostages moved closer and pulled on Brad, hinting for him to leave quickly. At this time, the hostages had already opened the office door one after another and were quickly fleeing outside. There were bombs everywhere. Although they didn't know why the bombs didn't explode even though they had clearly pressed the button, it was always good to leave quickly. Chen Guang's breath was getting weaker and weaker. It looked like he would die at any second. Lioli, you aren't lying to me, right? These bombs really won't explode, right? At this time, half of Chen Guang's mind was immersed in the world in the cup. He didn't look tired at all. Instead, he was full of energy. As long as you don't court death and kick those bombs like balls, they won't explode. Awesome. As expected of Lady Lioli. How did you do it? Lioli smiled proudly. The secrets of heaven can't be revealed. Also, you're obviously fine right now. Why are you pretending to be dead? I went through so much trouble and even got shot to save him. I should get some benefits back. Young man, you're very creative. Learn how to cook from me. Forget it, you can have fun on your own. I'm tired. I'm going to rest first. Lioli sat down cross-legged and closed her eyes. She was really exhausted and didn't have time to pay attention to Qin Guang. Just now, Lu Minghua came up with this idea. Didn't he recently receive a new special soul, Nicosia Tespester, in the world of cups? This soul seemed to have an extremely special connection with machine-type objects, especially machines that could explode and could be remotely controlled. It was a natural fit. Just now, Lioli had asked Qin Guang to put his phone under the blanket for this purpose. First, he brought the phone into the domain of the heavenly Holy Grail. Then, he temporarily transformed Nicosia's soul into a mechanical core and inserted it into Qin Guang's phone. Then he let Qin Guang's phone release a special radio frequency that completely suppressed the extremist's remote control. The extremist's remote control seemed to have pressed the button, but the signal wasn't sent out at all. This was the new function of the heavenly Holy Grail. At this time, Qin Guang was still pretending to be dead outside. His acting skills were on full display. He looked at Sun Xiaoxuan with tears in his eyes. Mr. Class Rep, after I die, you have to take care of yourself. No, don't. Sun Xiaoxuan cried out. Actually, I'm sick. I need a kiss from Sun Shichan to get up. Chapter 7:11. When he said that, Sun Xiaoxuan cried even harder. She thought that he was trying to make her happy, that he was putting on a brave front, that he felt that he was about to die, and that he didn't want to see her too sad. Sun Xiaoxuan turned over and hugged him tightly. Okay, I'll kiss you. Don't die, I beg you, don't die. Seeing her crying like a pear blossom in the rain, Qin Guang also felt that he might have gone too far. He quickly tried to stand up. Of course, he was fine. The power of the submachine gun wasn't that great. The bullet passed through his hands. Although it looked scary, and the flesh on his hands was torn to shreds, its power was reduced by a lot. In the end, it was stuck in the strongest chest muscle in history. It was about a centimeter deep, pressed against his ribs, and couldn't move an inch. Right now, he was just teasing Sun Xiaoxuan to amuse her. Seeing that she was crying so hard that it hurt his heart, he decided to stop pretending. However, Sun Xiaoxuan was completely fooled by his acting. She slowly moved closer and whispered, "Chen Guang, actually, I really like you." Thousands of words couldn't describe Sun Xiaoshuan's feelings at that moment. When Chen Guang really turned into a god and descended from the sky, the softest part of her heart felt as if it had been ruthlessly stabbed. Although she had long imagined that he might come. But when he really appeared, Sun Xiaoshuan suddenly understood that all the mental preparation she had done before was meaningless. Her mind was in chaos, and only the imposing figure of him descending from the sky could be seen. In this world, besides him, there was no other man who would resolutely appear in front of her in this kind of situation. Then, the terrifying demon who pointed a gun at her became vulnerable under his hands. The figure in front of her was so tall, but the other person was aiming a gun at him. Sun Xiaoshuan knew that at that moment, Chen Guang could actually dodge. His movements were so fast, but he didn't dodge at all. The reason was very simple, because she was behind him. Sparks flew and bullets flew. His body trembled as he was shot, but he still threw himself forward. Sun Xiaoshuan had asked herself many times what she liked about Chen Guang. The moment she saw Chen Guang block the bullet for her without dodging, her thoughts instantly became clear. Perhaps it was fate, or perhaps she really had a pair of eyes that could see through appearances and see through people's hearts. When she first saw him, she knew that he was a man of indomitable spirit. Although he often acted funny, didn't think before he spoke, and liked to be attracted to beautiful girls, which made Gaoye secretly scolded him as a playboy, it didn't matter. He was him, Chen Guang, a man who would not hesitate to appear in front of her when she was on the brink of death and use his body to block bullets for her. This was countless times more intense than the romance shown in television dramas. I've finally experienced something unforgettable with him, but that's not what I thought. Why was he the one who was shot and not me? I wanted to experience more with you, to have more memories, to leave a little more shadow in your heart, but I didn't want to do it in such an intense way, and I didn't want to face such a cruel fate. If you really die, how am I going to live alone? Please, stand up and tell me that you weren't shot and that you were lying to me. Hugging Chen Guang tightly, Sun Xiaoshuan's eyes were completely blurred with tears. She simply closed her eyes, but based on the scene in her memory, she slowly and firmly kissed Chen Guang's lips. How she wished that he wasn't joking, but was serious. As long as she kissed him, he would really stand up. Please don't die, I'll do whatever you want, and I won't be jealous of those meaningless things anymore. Whether it's Teacher Zhua, Wenwen, or Jin Shiyue, I don't care. You've done so much for me, I shouldn't have been jealous of anyone from the beginning, and I shouldn't have doubted my feelings for you in my heart. Sun Xiaoshuan took a deep breath, and her movements became more resolute. Looking at the cherry-red lips that were getting closer and closer, Chen Guang swallowed his saliva. Reason told him that he should quickly get up and stop acting cute. If he kept acting cute, something bad would happen. He clearly wanted to slowly separate himself from Sun Xiaoshuan during this period of time, but now it seemed like he was sinking deeper and deeper. No, I have to stop her. I have to push her away. It's always like this on TV and in movies. I just saved the damsel in distress, and her mind must be filled with thoughts of repaying me with her body. But I can't hurt her. But to be honest, Xiaoshuan's mouth really smells good. Where did this faint fragrance come from? How the hell did I end up kissing her? What happened to keeping my distance? I'm poisonous. Also, my hands aren't listening to me at all. I really couldn't tell. Although the esteemed class leader looks quite thin and weak, her chest is really full and elastic. I'm done for. If I pinch her like this, we won't be able to clear our relationship even if I jump into the Yellow River, right? This definitely isn't my fault. I'm being controlled by a mysterious evil force. If he knew earlier that a casual joke would turn out like this, he really wouldn't have deliberately teased Sun Xiaoshuan. But when Sun Xiaoshuan really kissed him and their lips touched, Chen Guang's mind also went blank. His feelings towards Sun Xiaoshuan were actually quite complicated. They were too familiar with each other. They saw each other almost every day during their 3 years in university. From time to time, they would fight and quarrel, and he would pull her to teach her a lesson. Or when he accidentally skipped class and was called, He would pull her to help him plead with the teacher. Although Chen Guang always thought that she was very beautiful and had a very special gentle and moving temperament, perhaps it was because he had the dazzling campus belle, Wen, by his side, or perhaps it was because Sun Xiaoxuan was always too low-key, so Chen Guang simply didn't notice this little girl hiding in the crowd and secretly watching him. Chen Guang knew that Sun Xiaoxuan paid a little more attention to him than others, but he only thought that it was because he was more active in class and caused a few troubles. He was a thorn in the class, so Sun Xiaoxuan, as the class leader, would definitely control him a little more. The relationship between the two could be said to be classmates, but it seemed to be much closer than ordinary classmates. They could be said to be friends, but it seemed that her concern for him exceeded the ordinary meaning of a friend. Chen Guang thought of a song. It was probably the feeling of being above friends, but not yet lovers. But since last semester, it seemed that the situation had changed a little. The biggest change was the incident with Pan Jiang. Since then, she seemed to have become more and more daring. He just teased her a little bit and thought it was a joke, but it ended up igniting a prairie fire. This can't go on. Forget it, it's not bad to continue like this. The old man isn't a saint, and I can't stop the devil in my heart. Chen Guang continued to lie on the ground silently, but his right hand, which was holding Sun Xiaoxuan, had already unknowingly reached into the gap of her pants. Her skin was so good, smooth and soft like boiled egg white. Chen Guang's left hand was delightfully groping her chest through her clothes. To be honest, today's situation was special. Otherwise, with Sun Xiaoxuan's thick skin, he wouldn't have been able to take advantage of her like this. Sigh, this devil is too scary. He has completely controlled me. After a long time, Sun Xiaoxuan finally retreated to the side with a red face. Footsteps gradually came from the door, and the police and FBI of Neil finally arrived. Chen Guang also felt that his acting was enough. Mr. Class Leader, please move aside and let me sit up first. Sun Xiaoxuan shook her head desperately. No, don't move, you can still be saved. What? I was just teasing you, I'm really fine. Sun Xiaoxuan still didn't believe him. Don't lie to me, I know everything. After you die, I won't marry for the rest of my life. Why are you so stupid? I don't want you to save me like this. Chen Guang was speechless. Fine, his acting was so good that no one would believe him now that he was telling the truth. Chen Guang simply lay on the ground and raised his hand to touch the place where the bullet was embedded. Then he gritted his teeth and pulled out the bullet, throwing it to the side. See, I told you I'm fine, the bullet really didn't go in. Chen Guang turned and grinned at Sun Xiaoxuan. Sun Xiaoxuan's eyes widened, thinking that he was hallucinating. That wasn't the end. Chen Guang simply hugged her waist and stood up. I was really just joking with you. Puma, you want to kill me with that stupid gun? Sun Xiaoxuan still couldn't believe it, but the feeling of being hugged by Chen Guang was so real. She tried to struggle a little, wanting to get down, but it was useless. Chen Guang had her firmly in his grip. You two, are you all right? Officer Jamie stood at the door of the office, carefully poking his head in, looking at the bombs hanging everywhere in the office. The two of them were actually being lovey-dovey, as if no one else was around. This Huaxia CIA director really knew how to have fun. Chen Guang raised an eyebrow at Jamie. Yo, bro, your knife is pretty good. It's on the ground, clean it up yourself, see you later. Chen Guang didn't put Sun Xiaoxuan down. Her body was so limp that it looked like she couldn't even stand straight. When they got downstairs, Chen Guang didn't want to be the center of attention. Instead, he used his identity as the director of the Huaxia Special Affairs Bureau to request for diplomatic protection and quietly left with Sun Xiaoxuan. Today, he had defeated two extremists, and if it was publicized, he would become the public enemy in the eyes of the extremists in the cult. That would be fun. Sun Xiaoxuan was still in a daze until she and Chen Guang got into the off-road vehicle. How did you do it? Chen Guang started the car, accidentally touching the wound on his hand, and it hurt a lot. Here's what happened, Mr. Class Representative, you've seen The Matrix, right? When the bullet flew out at the moment of life and death, I awakened a special ability, and it felt like time had slowed down. With a swoosh, I put my hands together, and the bullet flew towards me, hitting the gap between my hands and burrowing forward. I pressed my hands together with all my might, trying to block the bullet, but I wasn't strong enough, and the bullet flew out and hit my chest. As Chen Guang spoke, he flexed his chest muscles. I've been working out recently, and my chest muscles are especially developed. When the bullet hit my chest muscles, it burrowed in again, but it didn't matter. I used the Sea Dragon Coiling Dragon and squeezed my chest muscles to the center, and the bullet was caught. Sun Xiaoxuan's eyes widened, thinking that this guy was telling a fantasy story, but looking at him, it seemed to be real. Seeing that she still didn't believe him, Chen Guang picked up his clothes and pointed to his chest. See, it's really fine. Wait, don't move, let me take a look. Sun Xiaoxuan moved closer, one hand touching the uninjured part of Chen Guang's chest, and her eyes desperately moved closer to the wound that was shot by the gun. Although it looked scary, it really seemed to be a relatively serious skin injury. Sun Xiaoxuan didn't notice that the finger she pressed on Chen Guang's body accidentally touched a small bean, making Chen Guang grimace in pain. It's really, really fine. After a long time, Sun Xiaoxuan reluctantly sat up straight. Of course, don't you think about who I am? Sun Xiaoxuan said again, but you still have to deal with the wounds on your hands and chest, or else it will get infected. Okay, I'll go to the hospital now. As Chen Guang spoke, he started the car, accidentally touching the wound on his palm again, and the pain made him grimace again. God bless, his muscles and bones didn't suffer any damage. After driving for a while, he realized that the road out of town was completely rotten, and he couldn't drive out. Just as Chen Guang was about to call for help, Frant arrived in a helicopter. Although this young man didn't have the courage to risk his life with Chen Guang, he still had a sense of responsibility. The guilt-ridden Frant told Chen Guang to never mention the car compensation again, and he hurriedly had the helicopter take Chen Guang to the largest private hospital in Detroit. He had already contacted the famous doctor that the Shack family had been working with for a long time, and he was already waiting in the hospital. Chen Guang looked like he had been shot, and his injuries looked terrible, but in fact, they were just some external wounds that needed to be bandaged. He had originally planned to take Sun Xiaoxuan to a hotel, but Sun Xiaoxuan didn't feel at ease and insisted that Chen Guang stay in the hospital. Old Master Guang was very disappointed. Why was it the hospital again? This place wasn't suitable for the old man to do something shameful. Kill him. Since he had already become a regular at the hospital, he might as well open his own private hospital? All right, the investment was quite high, and it wasn't easy to find good doctors. If he accidentally recruited a bunch of quacks, wouldn't he just eat away his savings? I'm not even from Putian. As Sister Tanging? Forget it. Her family didn't lack money, and she was a straight-A student in the medical world. She seemed to have said that her dream in life was to win the Nobel Prize in medicine. Why would she waste time at her own private hospital? Sigh, what a headache. Don't pout. This is a gunshot wound, and it's very deep. We need to observe it more. What if you get tetanus? Rest well in the hospital for 2 days. I'll stay here with you. I won't go anywhere. Chen Guang hurriedly shook his head. No, I have a piano performance the day after tomorrow. I have to return to China tomorrow. What? Look at your hands. You can still play the piano? Sun Xiaoxuan suddenly asked a very serious question. Chen Guang raised his hands and looked at his wrapped palms. He was speechless. Damn, did I forget about this? Although the bones weren't injured, the bullet had penetrated the center of his palms, and the flesh was torn quite badly. It seemed like he would really have a problem if he played the piano in this state. He could barely play the piano like this, but if he wanted to fully perform at the piano performance and convince the audience in front of the TV, his hands had to be in good condition. This was troublesome. What should he do to make his hands recover as soon as possible? Chen Guang couldn't help but think of the last time he was shot in the shoulder. However, he was lucky at that time and happened to be in the world of the Qilin arm. After he came out, the injury healed automatically with the help of the divine power of the heavenly Holy Grail. But he couldn't do it this time. He had just had fun with the eeless legs, and it had only been a day since he had customized his pectoral muscles. Although the Holy Grail was powerful, he didn't have any extra food. He couldn't even get the beggar version of the world in the cup. What should he do? Chapter 7:12. I still have 2 more sets of medicine for Wenwen. Should I take a bath and try it out? Class rep, can you help me look through the bag next to me? Yes, that's the bag. There are 2 sets of traditional Chinese medicine inside. Help me boil 1 set and pour it into the bathtub. You've just been injured and your wounds haven't even healed yet. Why are you taking a bath? I can't explain it to you clearly, but this is really important. I won't joke around with my body. Please help me, Mr. Class Representative, thank you. Although she didn't understand what Chen Guang was trying to do, Sun Xiaoxuan was too easily persuaded. She couldn't dissuade him, and in the end, she agreed to his seemingly unreasonable request. That was the good thing about having someone by her side to take care of her. Although Sun Xiaoxuan wasn't as skilled as Wu Miaowan when it came to brewing medicine, she was meticulous. Chen Guang guided her throughout the process of brewing the medicine. After half an hour, a steaming hot bath was ready. Unwilling to give up, Chen Guang got up from the bed with a cup in hand and walked to the bathroom. The hospital arranged by Fronte was really good. Staying in it wasn't much different from staying in a hotel. Unexpectedly, when he stripped down to his underwear and laid in the bathtub, Sun Xiaoxuan suddenly opened the bathroom door and stuck her head in. I'll help you scrub your back? Chen Guang hurriedly waved his hand. No. I'm not scrubbing my back. I'm soaking in a medicinal bath. This medicine is very special and has a miraculous healing effect. You should rest first. I don't know how long I'll have to lie down. Sun Xiaoxuan reluctantly retreated. In fact, she wanted to do something more tonight, but she quickly relaxed. Chen Guang was still injured, and the 2 of them still had a long time to spend together. There were still many opportunities, so there seemed to be no need to rush today. That medicine must have been given to him by Wenwen. Otherwise, anyone with a normal brain would know not to take a bath after suffering from external injuries. There was no way Chen Guang didn't know that. What's so good about it? Don't let Chen Guang's wound get infected. Chen Guang was lying in the bathtub with the medicinal liquid covering his entire body. There was an itchy feeling coming from the wounds on his hands and chest. Wenwen's medicine had some effect, but it wasn't very good. It seemed that the effect on this kind of external injury wasn't as good as expected. Healing a wound and treating a strain were ultimately different. Chen Guang tried to enter the heavenly Holy Grail again. He had no choice but to ask Colored Glaze for help. Standing in front of Lu Li, who was sitting cross-legged in meditation, Chen Guang cautiously called out, "Lord Lu Li, what are you doing?" She seemed to have been tormented enough today, so she had to correct her attitude. I say, save your energy. She won't wake up. At this moment, Lu Minghua's voice came from outside the walls of Cloud City. Chen Guang was greatly shocked, and sorrow instantly welled up in his heart. Could it be that I've overly squeezed Lord Lu Li's divine power out and caused her to fall into a deep sleep once more? Does she need 1,000 years of meditation before she can recover her consciousness? I don't know. It's not that serious. She'll be fine in a few days. However, Sister Lu Li won't be able to help you for the next 2 days. Tell me if there's anything you need. I'm very reliable. Lu Minghua guided him patiently. After coming to the heavenly Holy Grail, he had waited bitterly for so many days. Finally, Sister Lu Li had fallen into a short period of deep sleep. This was a golden opportunity. Chen Guang actually didn't know much about this uninvited guest, Lu Minghua. Alright, he actually didn't know much about Lu Li either. The only thing he knew was that this Lu Minghua should also be one of them, and Lu Li should trust her a lot. These 2 gods were at least allies. Flying out of Cloud City, Chen Guang stood in front of Lu Minghua. I'm a little troubled. Look at the injuries on my body. I have very important matters to attend to in a few days. An injury on my hand isn't good for my performance. Blood, what did you say? No, nothing. Lu Minghua changed the topic. Let me summarize your needs. You just want to recover as soon as possible, right? Chen Guang nodded. Last time I was shot in the shoulder, and it was through the test of the world in the cup that I quickly recovered. This time, it seems that I can't get the world in the cup in a short time. Lu Minghua, do you have any good ideas? Lu Minghua shook her flower bud slightly. It's not that there isn't a way, but I don't know if you have the guts to try it. Don't say it in such a creepy way. I'm timid. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Based on his many years of reading online novels, Chen Guang knew from Lu Minghua's words that she was definitely planning to make a dirty devil's deal with him. He'd better forget about such a terrible thing. Seeing that Chen Guang was about to run, the deer cry flower finally revealed her fox's tail. Vines instantly grew out from her roots. Before Chen Guang's soul could turn ethereal, she had already locked him down. The deer cry flower's godly energy was released from the vines, which coiled around Chen Guang's body, locking him down and rendering him powerless. His whole body was lifted into the air. Chen Guang shouted, "I have no grudges with you in the past. Don't make trouble." Lu Minghua laughed. "Don't be like this. I don't want too much from you. It's just a little blood. Why the hell do you all like my blood?" Chen Guang remembered the first time he came into contact with Lily a long time ago. It seemed that his finger was also injured. Then, he gave his blood to the Tongtian Holy Grail to truly activate this cup. Because your blood is very nutritious. Don't be nervous. You'll be fine like this. I only need 200 cc of blood. You can donate the same amount of blood every time. It'll grow back in a few days. When did you even learn the units of measurement? You've been planning this for a long time. Of course. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Minghua's vines wrapped around Chen Guang from all directions and started to lick the wounds on his palm and chest. That's right. She gave Chen Guang the feeling that someone was licking him with a tongue. If you want to collect blood, then do it properly. Can you not make it so wretched? We're not tentacle animations. Don't make it too big. F*CKU. Do you think I want to? You only have these 3 wounds on your body, alright? But since he was on the tree, he had no choice but to lower his head. In the end, Chen Guang could only grit his teeth and accept the shameful process. Licking away 200 cc of his blood was probably something that had never been done before. Fortunately, Lu Minghua didn't spout nonsense. She really wanted that much. Once the amount was enough, Chen Guang was put down. Wait a moment. I'll give you a surprise later. Actually, this should have been done a long time ago. But I was unlucky. I only sucked your hair. If I could suck a little more flesh and blood, I wouldn't have to wait until today. As Lu Minghua spoke, her body began to change again. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. He thought to himself, I can give you my blood, but not my flesh. If I accidentally let you eat something that you shouldn't eat, causing me to be abruptly shortened by a section, who can I go to reason with? The tall Lu Minghua began to tremble crazily. The lustrous feather robe that was absorbed into her body turned into a myriad of colorful brilliance that appeared on the branches. Her body made a creaking sound and began to grow up crazily again. Out of thin air, she sprang up another few feet. The brilliance on the huge flower bud was even brighter. It was like a scorching sun in the sky. It was so bright that Chen Guang couldn't open his eyes. Under the dumbfounded gaze of Chen Guang, the dazzling flower bud exploded with a bang. It turned into specks of stars and scattered in Cloud City. Before Chen Guang could exclaim, a tiny spot of light appeared in the place where the flower bud originally grew. Scarlet lines gradually appeared from the bottom to the top of the flower stem, resembling a mysterious divine rune. Chen Guang speculated that these scarlet lines should be the blood that was sucked away just now. Sure enough, as the scarlet lines gradually formed, these lines that were filled with red mist began to climb up like small snakes. Finally, they converged on the small dot that grew on the original flower bud. A fruit gradually emerged and grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. It eventually became a green fruit about 5 feet tall, hanging at the top of the stem. At this time, the Lu Minghua had no flowers. Perhaps it should be renamed to Lu Minghua fruit. The light gradually dimmed and dissipated. Cloud City returned to peace. The sound of Lu Minghua came from the fruit. It sounded slightly tired. Cool. Well, actually, she wasn't particularly tired. Is it done? Chen Guang asked tentatively. Lu Minghua nodded. Yes, it's done for now. You mean you made such a big move, but in the end, you just replaced the flower with a fruit? Chen Guang shrugged. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. What do you know? Lu Minghua seemed to be a little shy halfway through her words. However, she felt that she had forcefully sucked his blood today. If she didn't give him some real benefits, she would feel guilty. Moreover, she had returned the favor so that she could continue to reap benefits from him in the future. Forget it if she was embarrassed, then so be it. Taking advantage of the fact that she hadn't successfully transformed the entire flower body, it didn't seem that hard to say. What am I going to do now? What surprise are you going to give me? Come in front of me and use your hand to touch my stem. Remember not to use too much force. It's best if you can find a special frequency. Later, you can secrete a drop of deer oil from the bottom of my stem. It can increase your body's metabolism in a short period of time and help you recover from your injuries. This is this God Emperor's trump card. Even Sister Lu Li doesn't know about it. If you take it to the God realm, it can even heal the God Emperor's injuries. Your small injury is not worth mentioning. Chen Guang silently looked at the big green fruit floating in the sky. He muttered in his heart. What the hell is this deer oil? Why does this process sound so shameful? What are you still dawdling for? Don't think that deer oil is easy to get. I only have one drop because I just bore a god fruit. You won't get another chance like this. All right. Chen Guang slowly walked forward and stretched out his hands. A little higher, a little higher. A little to the right. Yes, this depression. Under the guidance of the deer fruit, Chen Guang found the right position and used his hands to touch it. It was her cry that was very shameful. Can you be a little more serious? Deer fruit? What nonsense. Do you still want deer oil? What kind of damn technique is this? It's amazing. 3 shallow and 1 deep. Thank you for your patronage. Hiss. My God. What kind of technique is this? 9 shallow and 1 deep. Hold back your words and feel with your heart. Never in his wildest dreams did Chen Guang expect that the first time he used this divine technique that he learned from a book would be against a flower. How sad. Forget it. I don't know what kind of life this flower has in the God realm. Such a shameful thing, such a despicable secretion, it actually has the face to call itself deer oil. Do you really think I'm a 3-year-old child? You're already crying out like this, how can I not know what it is? Finally, the deer fruit stem began to tremble crazily. Her voice became more and more like that. It's coming. It's coming. 1 drop, catch it. Only 1 drop. Stand there and don't move. Chen Guang clenched his teeth and opened his arms. Although he felt uncomfortable, he endured it in order to heal his injuries as soon as possible. In the next moment, a crack suddenly appeared at the bottom of the deer fruit stem. If he remembered correctly, this crack seemed familiar. He seemed to have once plunged his head into it. As he was thinking in a daze, a viscous but fragrant golden liquid rushed out from inside. It enveloped his entire body and pushed him back a few meters. What happened to 1 drop? You're practically a fountain. Chen Guang sat up straight and wiped his face. The posture he used to receive the deer oil was too sincere. His mouth was slightly open and a lot of it was poured in. He couldn't even spit it out. Thinking about the true origin of this thing, he felt a little uncomfortable. Don't mind the details. This is just 1 drop for my body. I'm a little tired. I need to sleep. You can go out and feel it yourself. It's really strange. It's just secreting deer oil. Why is it so tiring? As he spoke, there was no sound from the deer fruit. It seemed like it had really fallen asleep. Chen Guang looked at this giant flower. To be honest, this drop of yours is really big. Also, don't pretend to be pure. I don't believe that you don't know anything. As he was complaining, the deer oil that had spread out on the floor of Cloud City suddenly came to life. It gathered around his body and tightly wrapped him like jelly. Waves of coldness assaulted him. Chen Guang watched as this unknown liquid quickly melted into his body. He was stunned. I'm not a sponge. Why is my suction so strong? He waited for a while, but there weren't any movements from the 2 of them. From the looks of it, They were done, so Qin Guang retreated. In that instant when he opened his eyes, he shrieked in pain. The wounds on his hands and chest felt like they were being burned by flames. Sun Xiaoxuan, who was originally waiting outside, suddenly opened the bathroom door. This time, she had a good reason. Qin Guang, what's wrong? She didn't give Qin Guang a chance to explain. She threw herself at the side of the bathtub. Then she saw the most incredible scene in her life. This guy was actually wearing underwear when taking a bath. What the lunatic! Angry. Infuriating. Qin Guang was in so much pain that his head was covered in cold sweat. He finally understood the power of Deercry's accelerated metabolism. It was really terrible. It was simply forcing his wounds to heal at a speed that was hundreds or thousands of times faster than normal. This was fast recovery, but the process was really heart-wrenching. He didn't have the time to care about Sun Xiaoxuan, who had suddenly barged in. He could only grit his teeth and endure. On the other side, Sun Xiaoxuan couldn't take advantage of him. She slowly moved her gaze up and finally saw the scene in front of her clearly. The place on Qin Guang's chest that had been torn open by the bullet was rolling like a wave. Pieces of fresh flesh rapidly grew out, mending the wound that had been torn open by the bullet. Sun Xiaoxuan looked at Qin Guang's hands. They were in the same situation. After a long time, she watched helplessly as all the wounds on Qin Guang's body automatically closed up like a zipper. They quickly and completely healed until there were no traces left. She finally covered her mouth and exclaimed, "Mad, mad, he's gone mad." Her mind was filled with despair and disappointment. Without a doubt, this medicine was given to him by Wenwen. Was Wenwen really so scary? This medicine simply had the power of a supernatural being. Chapter 713. While Sun Xiaoxuan was in a daze, Qin Guang's wounds finally healed completely. His forehead was full of sweat, and the medicine in the bathtub had been sucked clean by him. The super metabolic ability of Shenlu oil combined with the special medicine of the Wen family was obvious to anyone who used it. Anyway, he didn't want to do it again after the first time. Wiping the sweat on his head with the water in the bathtub, Qin Guang tremblingly stretched out his hand. Help me up." At this moment, Sun Xiaoxuan recovered from his shock and held onto Qin Guang's hand. He was angered by Qin Guang, who wore underwear even when taking a bath, and was shocked by Qin Guang's monstrous healing ability. Sun Xiaoxuan slowly helped Qin Guang up. Qin Guang sat up and sat on the edge of the bathtub for a long time. The pain in his chest and hands finally disappeared completely. He stood up and stretched, announcing that he was fully recovered. Although the process was a bit of a scam, the result was gratifying. She looked at him quietly. At this time, the water drops on his body had gradually dried up. The annoying black underwear didn't become translucent after being wet. She could only see the bulging thing, but it wasn't real. Sun Xiaoxuan's mood was very complicated. She felt regret and inconceivable. Her mind was still thinking about the terrifying healing scene. After waiting for so long, she began to reflect on another problem. The phenomenon on Qin Guang's body was unlikely to be the effect of Wenwen's medicine. Wenwen was a human, not a god. No matter how powerful the medicine was, it couldn't be so powerful. Therefore, the problem was most likely on Qin Guang. What kind of secret was hidden in this guy's body? 10 million questions finally converged into one sentence. Do you still want to take a bath? No, I just want to lie down. Right, have you packed your things? I bought a ticket to the same flight as you. We'll go back together tomorrow. Must you go back? Sun Xiaoxuan was still reluctant. Qin Guang nodded and smiled at her. Of course. Just renting the National Gallery of Art cost a few million. If I don't go back, wouldn't the money be wasted? Also, so many people have already bought tickets, I can't just let them go. This pigeon is too big, I can't let it go. Sai, you're really... Sun Xiaoxuan gradually became melancholy. She felt that Qin Guang's position was getting higher and higher, and she was getting more and more confused about his situation. Could it be that he and I are really not from the same world? Well, why don't you go outside first? My underwear is wet. I need to change my pants. Seeing that Sun Xiaoxuan was distracted, Chen Guang reminded her that she felt a little cold after sitting outside for a long time. Okay. If Wu Tong was in Chen Guang's shoes, she might even force Chen Guang to change into his underwear. However, Sun Xiaoxuan's skin was thin. Although he had such thoughts in his heart, he didn't dare to say it out loud. Thus, he reluctantly retreated and did not forget to instruct, don't hesitate if you need any help. Today's class monitor's son is not normal. Chen Guang concluded. Fortunately, I'm not normal today, or I'll eat you up. After drying his body and changing his underwear, Chen Guang lay back on the hospital bed. Sun Xiaoxuan lay on the bed opposite to him. Her eyes were blank, and no one knew what she was thinking. Seeing her restless look, Chen Guang knew that she was still thinking about the scene she just saw. In fact, not to mention her, even Chen Guang was shocked. Who knew that the effect of the deer oil was so overbearing, and she happened to see it. Chen Guang, I ask you a question. Can you answer me truthfully? Finally, Sun Xiaoxuan spoke. Sure, go ahead and ask away. Chen Guang acknowledged, what will come will come. Like me? Chen Guang was stunned. He thought that Sun Xiaoxuan would ask about his wound. He was even ready to lie to her and say that he was an alien, or talk about the metaphysics of immortals, just like when he tricked Tang Ying. However, he didn't expect that she would ask this. Chen Guang turned his head and looked at Sun Xiaoxuan. She was also looking straight at him. Her face was flushed, but her eyes were bright. She didn't avoid his gaze at all, but with a very special determination. I like you a little. Chen Guang's words were not firm, but it was indeed his true feelings. It was impossible for him to say that he didn't like her. He couldn't lie to himself, nor could he lie to Sun Xiaoxuan. But for him to say resolutely that he liked her and that he wanted to be with her, he couldn't do it. So, after thinking about it, he simply used such an ambiguous tone. Perhaps it was a little hurtful, but it couldn't be any more sincere. Sun Xiaoxuan suddenly smiled, and it was a very sweet smile. Even though there was a hint of uncertainty in Chen Guang's tone, she knew that this was his character. Good, this was the real him. By the way, will you still study next semester? You are so busy now. Sun Xiaoxuan asked again. Chen Guang said resolutely this time, I will study, why not? What can I do if I don't study? Don't think that I am full of enthusiasm for other things. Let me tell you, I am forced to do so. Who wants to live such a hard and busy life? It's okay. You will settle down sooner or later. Sun Xiaoxuan said that she had seen through the world again, and then looked straight at Chen Guang. Go to sleep. I will go back to school with you to pack your things tomorrow morning. You were scared today, weren't you? Chen Guang was scared by her stare. He was afraid that she would pounce on him at this time, so he changed the topic. Sun Xiaoxuan nodded first, and then shook her head. I was scared at first, and then I was even more scared. But when you stood up with me in your arms, I was sure that you were really okay. Then, I was not afraid of anything. Mr. Class Rep, okay, I won't say these mushy words. Sigh, why am I so unlucky? I'm not pretty, I'm not talented, I can't sing, I'm not a star, and I'm not the campus belle. Don't say that. It's not your problem. You are very excellent. I am not used to you suddenly becoming like this. Chen Guang was not talking nonsense. Talking to Sun Xiaoxuan in this state was really stressful. It was much more difficult than talking to her at school. He was afraid that he would accidentally say or do something wrong and hurt her. I know, but don't think of me as so fragile. I'm not that easily sad. Because I have a heart that is more determined than many others. It is a heart that simply likes you. Another confession. Previously in the office of the Detroit Institute of Technology, when she thought she was really going to die, she said that she liked you once. Now she said it again. I am so hesitant. Should I try to say yes and then hug her to sleep? Sleep. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You flirtatious radish. However, Sun Xiaoxuan immediately poured cold water on him and ridiculed him. Before he could think clearly, she immediately covered his head with the quilt. After a while, she actually fell asleep. The quilt slowly slid down, and a slight snoring sound came from her nose. She looked a little playful. She was really tired. However, Qin Guang could not fall asleep. He turned on the TV and turned it to silent. It happened to be playing the highlights of today's international arm wrestling competition. He watched his journey of winning the championship on TV. It was a very unique feeling. Presumably, there were many television stations in the world that were also showing the video of this competition. At this time, his domestic hype should be in full swing. He was the first Asian person in history to win the international arm wrestling competition. Moreover, he was a relatively thin person. He had snatched food from a group of monstrous giants. This would definitely attract people's attention. He wondered how the people who were about to go to the National Art Museum to hear his piano concert would feel when they suddenly found out that he had gone abroad to win the title of the world's strongest arm wrestling king. Thinking about it, it would still be quite strange, right? But it did not matter. Anyway, he had never taken the normal path. Chen Guang could even feel that as the TV program was broadcasted, fresh and hot threads of faith were flying in from all over the world. From the end of the competition until now, the world of Kirin's arms faith production was still increasing. Although it was not full yet, it should be in less than 2 days. Aside from that, Qin Guang did not notice that his pencil sharpening world had already reached the maximum. It must be because the Guinness conference in China had been broadcasted, and the viewership was pretty good. It was a pity that this program would be ending soon. He also felt that the new program of China's 5,000 years of stunts was not bad. Why did they have to go to the Guinness conference that worshipped foreigners? We can do our own. Before he finished watching the TV, his phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was Lin Jingwei. At this moment, Chen Guang had no choice but to mention the Popcorn 5S, an extremely powerful domestic popular model. After being stuffed into the heavenly holy grail by Qin Guang, it clanked along with his bag when he moved violently. Aside from the small problem of a cracked screen, it was actually still usable. As expected of a company with a conscience. Xiao Wang is awesome. I will definitely accept your endorsement next time. What? Brother Guang, bad news. I heard that class rep's son is doing an experiment in America. Something happened at that school. It seems that the class rep was among the hostages. Little Linny's voice sounded very anxious. He didn't know who had told him this news. Chen Guang looked at Sun Xiaoxuan, who was drowsy from the ringing of his phone. He whispered, "All right, don't say things after the fact. I'm here." "No, it's really serious. I heard that a few hostages died." Qin Guang, who was that? Sun Xiaoxuan said in a daze. He did not know if he was really woken up. What? It should be 1 o'clock in the evening over there, right? Class rep's voice? Oh my God. Brother Guang, I was wrong. Enjoy your meal, goodbye. The tactful Linny hung up the phone again. Given his character, he probably wouldn't go to Jin Shiyue to complain, right? Chapter 714. After hanging up the phone, Qin Guang was also a bit sleepy and fell asleep in a daze. In the middle of the night, the room seemed to be a bit cold. A warm and petite body quietly burrowed into his bed. The sleepy Qin Guang didn't think too much about it. He just thought it was a dream. He hugged the body tightly and continued to sleep. Even in the middle of the night, he couldn't remember what he was dreaming about. Perhaps it was because Zhuo Jingxi wasn't by his side, Wenwen wasn't there, and he didn't go to the sea of fleeting time to see Annie. Today, he was stimulated by the divine deer oil, so there were some charming thoughts lingering in his mind. Deep in sleep, the chaotic and complicated thoughts in his mind unconsciously emerged from the depths of his subconscious. Adding to the fact that there was such a petite person in his arms that he could do whatever he wanted, it was even more incredible. His hands moved as he dreamed. His hands randomly groped the body of the person in his arms, and his body forcefully moved forward. In a dream, people naturally didn't have so many scruples, and the stimulation they received was also doubled. There was a saying, a night of spring wind without a trace, like a dream, like an illusion, but also like reality. Sun Xiaoxuan blushed. She didn't think it would be like this. Previously, she had woken up in the middle of the night. She looked up at Qin Guang sleeping soundly in the dim light outside. Her mind then recalled what happened in the Detroit Institute of Technology in the evening. The scene of the dead person gradually emerged from the bottom of her heart. She only felt waves of lingering fear. At that time, she appeared calm enough. Afterwards, because of Qin Guang's injuries, she temporarily forgot about other fears. It was not until the middle of the night that she recalled the scene in the depths of her mind. The more she thought about it, the more scared she became. The scene of the shot girl lying in a pool of blood didn't fade with time. Instead, it became clearer and clearer in the darkness of the night. The color of the blood spread on the ground became brighter and brighter. It was like a dark red abyss that seemed to want to swallow one's reason. Sun Xiaoxuan suddenly felt very cold, so cold that it pierced into her bones. No matter how strong she was still just an ordinary female university student. She hadn't experienced too many things. It was already a miracle that she could hold on until now. His bed must be very warm, right? Sun Xiaoxuan asked himself again and again in his mind. Chen Guang and his bed had become a black hole, crazily attracting Sun Xiaoxuan's mind. She finally couldn't hold it in any longer. She crawled out of her bed and tiptoed to Qin Guang's bedside. She pulled back the blanket and curled up her body. It was really warm. Chen Guang's body temperature turned the bed into the warmest place in the world. Especially after a while, when Qin Guang pulled her into his arms in a daze, the dark red image that kept surfacing in Sun Xiaoxuan's mind gradually shattered. In the beginning, everything was fine. However, after lying down for a while, Qin Guang began to behave. At first, Sun Xiaoxuan was still holding it in. She knew that Qin Guang had already fallen asleep. She only thought that this guy was treating her as a stuffed toy. However, as time went on, Qin Guang's hands became more and more dishonest. She gradually couldn't hold it anymore. This guy, what kind of dirty dream is he having? It hurts. The bones in my butt hurt. How can this guy be so hard? Sun Xiaoxuan struggled to move up a little bit. Finally, she was able to relax a little. Chen Guang was completely unaware. He really thought that he was dreaming. After a long time, he finally let out a long sigh. His whole body was incomparably comfortable. In his 20 years of life, he had never had such a realistic dream after winter. Should I use a tissue to wipe it? In a daze, this thought popped up in his mind. However, he gave up on it. His whole body was lazy. He didn't have the slightest bit of strength. He was too lazy to move. In any case, he would die by tomorrow morning and turn into a shell. According to the law of conservation of energy, Chen Guang's metabolism today consumed a lot of energy. It was also because his mind was more tenacious than ordinary people. If it was an ordinary person, they would have already fainted. Chen Guang was calm enough, but Sun Xiaoxuan was suffering. The two of them obviously didn't do anything, but they were sticky. It was really uncomfortable. She was panting with a red face. After spending a lot of effort, she finally cleaned up with great difficulty. She didn't dare to move too much, for fear that she would wake up Qin Guang. When she lay down again, her mind began to worry about another thing. She heard that tadpoles can live for 4 hours, and they can even swim inside. Just now, there seemed to be quite a bit of tadpole sticking to the base of my thigh. Did I directly swim inside? I can't be pregnant, right? This is such a loss. But I shouldn't be so unlucky, right? Isn't this probability similar to winning 5 million yuan in the lottery? But what if... Sun Xiaoxuan, what are you thinking about all day long? Can't you think of something good? How can I get pregnant out of nowhere? I just rubbed against it. Forget it. Why don't I buy a pill tomorrow? It can be used for 72 hours. But the pill seems to have side effects. For the whole night she was worried about the gains and losses, but she was also faintly looking forward to something. The next morning, before Qin Guang woke up, she shrunk her neck and went back to her bed. The fear of being held hostage was gone, and she was only afraid of something else. Damn, you have dark circles under your eyes. Did you steal a cow last night? Early in the morning, Chen Guang was shocked by Sun Xiaoxuan's dark eyes. Sun Xiaoxuan had a guilty conscience. You stole a cow. Didn't steal a cow? The one who stole it? I'm angry. Sun Xiaoxuan stamped his feet. Okay, I won't joke with you. I'm sorry. I'll borrow a car from my friend, and then we'll go to your school to move things. We should go back to China. Chen Guang knew that she was shy, and he knew that he had made a joke. He shouldn't joke about a girl having an affair. Unexpectedly, when the two went downstairs, they found that a black armored MPV was already waiting downstairs. Several UA agents with loaded guns were on full alert, and even Frant was blocked on the periphery, unable to enter. What's going on? Chen Guang scratched his head in confusion. Sun Xiaoxuan also pulled Chen Guang's clothes nervously. Hello, Director Chen. My name is Snow, an agent of the CIA. I'm also responsible for security when some foreign dignitaries visit. This time, Director Chen was injured because of our negligence, and we're deeply sorry. Chen Guang suddenly realized that he must have used his identity as the director of the Special Affairs Bureau yesterday to show off and cause an international reaction. Sure enough, this was a diplomatic incident. A deputy minister of Huaxia was in danger in his own country, which made the U.S. personnel uneasy. They mobilized manpower and material resources overnight to increase the level of security, at least to the level of a visit from a deputy minister of Huaxia. Chen Guang suddenly became serious. Since it had been raised to a formal occasion, his next words and actions represented the face of Huaxia, and he could not be taken lightly. Therefore he coughed softly, and his world-class acting skills burst forth. He instantly played the role of a diplomat, and smiled very formally at Agent Snow. Mr. Snow, you're exaggerating. This time, I'm only traveling and visiting a friend in a private capacity, not a state visit. Yesterday's incident was also accidental. Because my friend was involved, I took the initiative to intervene. Speaking of which, I have to thank the cooperation of your country's police. This can be considered as the two sides joining forces to fight against terrorist organizations. Mr. Snow, you know that our country's position has always been to resolutely resist and strongly condemn terrorists. Maintaining international peace is also a consistent principle of our country. Snow's mouth twitched, as expected of a vice-ministerial level official of Huaxia. Such diplomatic rhetoric came out of his mouth. It had always been us, the world police, who went to other countries to maintain peace, but you came to us to maintain peace without saying a word. Who needs your protection? But this was the truth, and he could not refute it. Director, you shouldn't have sent me here. I'm not his match. But Mr. Snow, please help me explain clearly to the relevant personnel of your country that I'm involved in this operation in a private capacity, and I don't want to affect my friend. So, please help me to handle this matter in a simple manner. After chatting with Snow for a while, Chen Guang and Sun Xiaoxuan got into Frante's car. Under the escort of a group of agents led by Snow, they first went to school to pack their belongings, and Sun Xiaoxuan said goodbye to her classmates. At that time, Brad was still a little unwilling, but because of what happened yesterday, Sun Xiaoxuan did not have the slightest good attitude towards him. Brad had wanted to make an issue of his identity as a rich family member, at least not to let Sun Xiaoxuan, her boyfriend from Huaxia, be too arrogant. But Snow, who had brought a few agents with him, really made Brad stare at them. He did not dare to say a word during the whole process, and only tried his best to guess Chen Guang's identity in his mind. Finally, the group of people got on the plane from Detroit to Yenjing. Agent Snow also let out a long breath. He finally sent off this mysterious Huaxia deputy minister. By the way, class monitor son, why are you flying to Yenjing instead of going back to Wuxian? Why don't you go directly to Wujing and go back to school? Sitting on the plane with Sun Xiaoxuan, Chen Guang asked casually. Sun Xiaoxuan blushed. How could she admit that she originally wanted to go directly to Wujing, but when she heard from Lin Jingwei that Chen Guang was recently active in Yenjing, she suddenly had a stroke when she bought the ticket and went to Yenjing. That's because Gaoye asked me to go to Betaling in Yenjing. That's right. Best friends were used to shift the blame at times like this, and Sun Xiaoxuan also learned this trick. That's good. Come to my concert the day after tomorrow. I'm not bragging, but my piano skills are much better than Kladerman's. Other people might think of him as a joke if they heard this, but Chen Guang knew that he was really being modest. Although Clayderman was famous in the field of piano performance, perhaps he could only be said to be a master who popularized the piano. In terms of actual skill level, Clayderman could not be considered to have reached a higher level. He waited for Sun Xiaoxuan to say that she did not believe him, and then he would shock her on the day of the concert. He really did not know what was going on. As a person, it was addictive to showing off and slapping people in the face. He wanted to show off whenever he had the chance, and he did not even want to let go of his own people. "I know. You are the best in the world," Sun Xiaoxuan said with her hands on her chest. Chen Guang covered his face. "Okay, in fact, you are my brainless Chen Guang bragging. I tried to show off in front of you, but I miscalculated. Really shameless. How can there be such a thick-skinned person in the world?" Sun Xiaoxuan was a veteran brainless Chen Guang bragging. He would believe anything he said. However, there were always rational people in the world. For example, the guy sitting in front of Chen Guang seemed to be a fan of Clayderman. He straightened up from his seat and looked back at Chen Guang. His face was full of displeasure. "Sir, I am a student of the Leiden Academy of Music. I had the honor of listening to Mr. Clayderman's concert. I was amazed by his skills. Mr. Clayderman's contribution to the popularization of the piano is obvious to all music fans around the world. I really do not understand. Where does a person like you get the courage and the face to say that you are better than Mr. Clayderman? Piano is an art. It is not addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It is also not a matter of who gets a high score. I cannot deny that Mr. Clayderman's composition is not very high, but I believe that his playing skills are unique. It is because of him that many young people in this world are fascinated by the art of piano. You must apologize to Mr. Clayderman. Not only that, you are even insulting art. I think you should also apologize to music." This guy was obviously a very stubborn person. He liked to go on the offensive at every turn. Chen Guang turned his head to look at him. Of course, he was extremely unhappy. "I am bragging to my sister. How is it bothering you? Do you have nothing better to do? I still have to apologize to music? Is there something wrong with you? I will slap your face." Thus he grinned. "Sorry, Scram, that you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.